Among the thinkers, among the ideologue, among the theorists, among the leaders, reformers, he is one of the leading ones, along with Gandhi, along with Tagore, along with whosoever in India we considered as a so his contribution. And when I was the head of the Department of Foundations of Education, we had selected some thinkers to focus our ideas, which have influenced the Indian psyche, Indian mental, that Ambedkar is very important. Ambedkar's idea also has to be taken along with some other thinkers, Gandhi and Paul Freire. To me, these two are very important to understand what Ambedkar wanted to. But he didn't accept the whole Marxist philosophy fully. He has his own way of understanding. He did understand that reality has to be seen in terms of a structural framework, a structural issues where one has to see in terms of the two groups, where the people, those who are oppressed and those who are oppressors. Oppressed and oppressors have to be seen. So the whole Indian caste system, which is not just in a dual framework, but a multi-level social hierarchy which is there, where one caste is at the top, another is at uh, the in the middle, and then there is a hierarchy of the fourfold is there. So there is a graded hierarchy, the graded inequality inbuilt into the caste system, in which what he tried to point out is untouchables fall outside the system. Now, this idea that how this placement of untouchables in the Indian social order requires a different kind of framework to understand, in the sense that it is not an appendage to the whole caste system. It is a different kind of social order which exists alongside the caste system, but not as a part of the caste system. It may be product of the caste system or something, but it is not wholly. This has to be seen. The main challenge for to create an identity for the untouchables. So here there is something that when there is an identity for the disadvantaged or for the oppressed, how that identity should be formed. There have been struggles with regard issues interaction between Gandhi and Ambedkar and other thinkers. There are some leaders who were there who wanted to co-opt Ambedkar's ideas in the backward movements, where some of the backward castes, in fact, wanted to include the civil caste and civil tribes, or those who are untouchables at the same level. So this is where one has to see that how Ambedkar differs from others. Here, idea is that if you have to create a group or identity, it has to be based on certain kind of ideas which are uh, based on the symbols of discrimination. And more organization. So the idea of or his slogan of educate and organize is still part of it. And this is where the role of education is very important to understand that what role education can play, whereby all those who get educated in the modern education system should try to work towards this so that an educated man is not somebody who receives the idea, does not concentrate, but who also tries to understand and make it as a tool to change the world for better. It is in this kind of the context that he was working on this. There have been criticism by others that Ambedkar did not give the same. I mean, if he was so much champion of untouchables, did he support the other backward movements, caste movement? And there he tries to analyze that the support that probably untouchables would have given to the backward caste movement were not that forthcoming. And that is that was a problem, and this problem has to be understood that oppression which is there as a bipolar phenomenon. What I, that in a structuralist school of thought, there is that social reality exists in terms of binary oppositions, whereby you see the two extremes, and these extremes, in fact, give you the framework of whole, uh, whereby, for example, there is a black and white. You have two poles. In between, there are so many graded colors. So if you have to understand the racism and you see that in terms of black and white, you don't see then there comes a brown, there comes a different kind of a mixture of colors which are there. In this kind of situation whereby one somebody who has been relegated to the lowest position, where there is after that there is no lower position. In that kind of what is that has to be understood in that case. This, in fact, is a basically subject matter of a structuralist school of thought, which Levi-Strauss and many French thinkers have tried to analyze the Indian social reality, where some of them, for example, in sociology, Homo hierarchicus, this uh, the French thinkers who, Louis Dumont, in fact, who talked about that purity and pollution, that Indian caste system is characterized by purity and pollution. This is somewhere very close to, but he talks about not in terms of this two bipolar, but in terms of multi-polar or graded kind of this. So he says that Indian caste system uh, can be understood. There has been a lot of emphasis in terms of understanding Indian caste system in terms of fourfold varnas. But in terms of this caste and that untouchables, how to understand that? That is something which requires a different kind of pedagogy, which requires different kind of understanding. That is can be understood only through this framework. This was what uh, Ambedkar tried to emphasize throughout, and he said that they require a different kind of lens, critical lens, whereby you see the reality in a different way. In the same way, Paul Freire also was talking about that there is a group of oppressed, there is a group of oppression, and there has been some kind of a relationship between them, and that relationship has to be understood. And this can be seen uh, by putting them in terms of oppositional forms, whereby interests of the two are very different. And this has to be, so there is a, so in the classroom, when there is a teacher and there is a student, how that should be, the role should be played in the classroom. That is something that has been very much important in the case of Ambedkar, where one can look into that aspect. So the caste system being a system of different social groups put hierarchically at the different levels require a different kind of a treatment to understand. There have been functionalist analysis of it, the interactionist and various other kind of approaches, but one which requires some kind of a structuralist way of looking at it can be seen, and in terms of the way Paul Freirean ideas. There have been literature which talk about how to compare Paulo Freire and Ambedkar while analyzing the Indian social reality. There is a lot of work, in fact, being done by people, those who use Paul Freirean concept in fact critical consciousness or conscientization to understand that the Indian social reality. The same way, conscientization can be is almost parallel to what educate and agitate means. Agitate means that you have to, by getting educated, you in fact get into that contestation of ideas whereby you try to question certain things. Critical consciousness is also, or conscientization is also that one, the major aspect of this is to how to be aware of your own social existence. That is something that Ambedkar, in fact, was very much particular about. By being educated is not just being literate, but to be aware of the existence of your social existence, how you have come to that stage, why have you come to that stage, and what are things that you can do in order to change that for a better life. That is something which has been there as a part of Ambedkar's ideology throughout. And this somehow, while even uh, drafting constitution, leading the constitution um, group of constitution drafting group, whereby he played a role, and in fact, some of the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity that he always espoused democratic principles, he tried to ingrain those thoughts in the constitution. And to him, in fact, education, any religion which in fact uh, uh, propagates these principles of equality, fraternity, and liberty are basically, he falls in that category and believes in that religion. According to him, that we take his role, in fact, in terms of he accepted that the kind of task that he wanted to do, there were, I mean, the idea of giving separate electorates, and this is a political matter, but I am more concerned about that his role as a pedagogue and his role as what he did, advocated in terms of uh, how uh, society should be reorganized, how what kind of principles should be adopted. He has also talked about that uh, the pedagogy which is there in the conventional education system. He said that okay, one can have a education system. So he played dual role in terms of because of the limitations that leader always has. That there is an immediate objective and there is a long-term objective. Immediate objective was that if society has, there is a certain process which is going on, to have a say in that. So in that context, he also supported reservation and many other kind of policies whereby some immediate gain certainly should be given to these groups whereby they can have, but that was not supposed to be a long-term kind of a, whereby he believed in that sense that you have to use it so that you come at the level playing field where you can bargain properly. That is not the end of it. That is something that one has to look into this aspect. In India, somehow our social science perspective has not developed. Alvin Gardner, in fact, wrote The Coming Crisis of Sociology, Western Sociology, or sociology, which was there, whereby existing theories were not able to explain the social reality. Same way, the Indian situation. Now, we have a social sciences, and social science is so pronounced that we have to advocate the role that it has to be given. Now, the new education policy, which is being implemented now, uh, requires certain kind of a framework whereby the multidisciplinary approach which is being talked by this education policy needs certain kind of emphasis in which all other sciences need to have those aspects where uh, the social science have to work along with this. So idea of social science being very different from natural sciences somehow have not been that helpful. At that Institute of Social Science, when we were involved in this, there were programs whereby even doctors and students of management and others had to undergo the social science courses so that people get enthused, people get sensitized with the kind of uh, sensitivity that they require. Even a doctor or engineer or anybody who is a natural scientist has to have that social framework, the social context in which the this aspect of uh, reality has to be understood. So they are not just only engineers, but their sensitivity, or they are doctors, or so the context in which this whole social science has to be seen, has needs to have, and that is where that probably what Ambedkar was trying to say, that there should be the context is very important, and it is the context which gives you the framework, and it has to be seen through in that uh, way. So I also see that the importance of Ambedkar's approach towards sensitizing people, making people aware, and that requires some kind of orientation uh, to the principles which have been popularized in the social sciences uh, to be reflected not only in the social science but also in other social sciences as well. Constitutional and legal provisions which have been there as a part of the measures which have come out are yet to be implemented. I mean, I personally feel that although um, there are uh, provisions of removal of untouchability, or still uh, those crimes and those exercises are held in the society, and people's mind has not changed. So idea here is that social science is nothing that comes from outside. It's something which is there in the society. The way the children are raised in the society and the social norms are there, unless those things are changed subsequently, unless you know how to behave um, in your own immediate social context, either within the family or outside the family. So it becomes uh, important only in that context. So when I say that these things applies to all the situations, I also mean that what Ambedkar was questioning about the very process of operation, the very idea of operation is very important to understand that even in the society where uh, we live, how we treat our women, how we treat our children or within the family in terms of what kind of notions of equality are professed in the society, in the family itself. Even if you are doing something inside your family in a certain way, uh, which is very authoritarian, uh, you will have the kind of situation. So all these things which emerged out of the social order was a product of the way society got ingrained into this, and this has to be understood, that if society has to be changed, change should be happening. So when he was trying to say something in terms of oppositional categories, he was trying to talk about uh, the way society should be organized, the way families should be organized, the kind of norms and values should be there, the way childhood to be understood, the way womanhood to be respected. So these are certain things that one has to look into, that Indian social order, where in which not only the scheduled caste or the lower caste, but also the women which have now who have been relegated to the lower positions, and they have been subjected to different kind of oppression. So a lot of Ambedkar's Dalit literatures are in fact focusing on women literature and Dalit women in terms of how these ideas of oppression, in fact, need to be seen when we are talking about the case of women. And then the same principles of operations probably uh, need to be understood that critically, that how these things are applicable not just in the, when we are dealing with this oppressed and oppressor in a scheduled caste context, but also within the situations whereby, so a lot of things that when he was using the quotations from Manusmriti, where he tried to refer, then there were references also to the women with regard to that. So he was saying that um, it is not just with this. This is there is an attitude towards uh, uh, human being, that how human beings should be treated. He also, like Paulo Freire, in fact, there is a similarity in terms of both Paul Freire and Ambedkar in the uh, like Paul Freire. In fact, Ambedkar also experienced oppressions. Paul Freire experienced poverty in the sense that when there was great repression in the world, that time, then when the poverty was almost knocking almost every door, and then he went through that, and that is where the oppression, and he saw that in that context uh, when he talked about those oppressions, uh, and tried to see that similar way. Ambedkar, in fact, when he was growing up, the way his childhood, the way he was treated inside the classrooms, the schools, and others, those are the things that he helped him to understand that what exactly one goes through. The idea here is that when he was trying to break the caste system, or say that when he says that annihilation of caste system, you don't need to change. Mere tinkering of the system does not help. You need to change the whole system, and that is where is that you just cannot change the system, because very different. You have to leave that system to create another world, and that is something that he almost advocated in many ways. And and when like Paul Ferre again, he talks about this theological aspect of salvation, or whereby that you, unlike this Marxist methods, you economic measures, he talks about that accepting different social order. Paul Ferre also talked about through different, although Paul Ferre, since he was a theoretician, and he proposed many other kind of ideas where he looked into those aspects, taking this Christian theology and those aspects and bringing that aspect. Ambedkar was also bringing that aspect into it, and his idea of emphasizing the Buddhist system, whereby the getting rid of the caste system through a particular different social order was a different kind of mechanisms that he espoused. In today's context, in fact, when we are trying to understand social order through the Ambedkar's framework, there is also one way to look at that both probably Ambedkar and Gandhi would have worked together. It's just that I feel that there is one place where I felt that probably both would have come together was this Gandhian idea of basic education. To me, it seems that Gandhi, when he took the craft as the medium of instructions, where the craft is the basically occupation of the lower caste, or even some of the untouchables have this crafts. They're very skilled people, and how to use that as the medium of education. Probably that was something Gandhi professed and did, which was very much closer to what Ambedkar was talking about in terms of pedagogy, operation. Probably both needed to work on this project, and it's just that I think since both of them were engaged in a different kind of pursuit, they needed some kind of approach probably, and which I could see that In many ways, although Gandhi's ideas also remained there, he could not go beyond. And basic education that he proposed, whereby the occupation of the untouchables or occupations of the backward caste should be the medium of education, and that should be nourished, and that should, through which education has to be changed, was not taken up by the modern India. Similar way, what I think Ambedkar in fact talked about in many ways, to use certain kind of provisions where in this constitution have not gone into the same way as it should be. But what I feel that uh, it's very important to understand that how education should be imparted to our. And he certainly, to him, the greatest occupation is the cultivation of the mind. That how mind should be cultivated, and that is where he laid the maximum importance to the critical role that education plays in making people aware of it. So he can be also one of the great educationists who talked about the role of education. And like many other thinkers in India, in fact, who have, because it's education which made what Ambedkar was Ambedkar. It's education what made Gandhi what Gandhi was Gandhi. So the role of education and what it can do to an individual is very important. And that is where that the both Gandhi, Ambedkar, and Paul Ferry. To me, these three thinkers need to be taken together. If in the social sciences, if we have to have a critical pedagogy as a part of the education system, then these thinkers should be taught together, and their ideas are very important, and they complement each other's ideas in a very innovative way, whereby one gives certain framework and then others example. Uh, Gandhi was more like a practitioner. He tried whatever ideas that he had, he tried to practice, implement it immediately, and by doing that, he went into. He certainly was not as radical as Ambedkar was there, because in many ways he didn't want to change that horse. He wanted to have a change, but within the social order. These were certain differences which were there, but it was very much close to what Ambedkar was trying to achieve in some way, that how to improve the conditions, how to make these groups, those who have been subjected to, I mean, this oppressions or discriminations, how to, through the empowerment. And so role of education as empowerment, um, tool of empowerment, is very important, and that is why then this has been there. This project has been there, I think, part of in all the developing countries. This has been issued that education, the way it should have been, it has not. Somehow we have fallen into some kind of so I just see that, I would not like to say, like, I would like that some ideas which I have thrown, in fact, in a very untutored way, can be discussed further. I mean, one doesn't have to look into. I'm not very, I mean, have read Ambedkar, but not expert on Ambedkar. But I teach, in fact, Gandhi and Paul Ferre to a great extent. And whenever I read Ambedkar, I see that this idea has been talked by Paul Ferre in a different context. And when I read Paul Ferre, then I see that Gandhi also has talked in a different. So I see there is a triangular uh, understanding, this triangular focus on the same aspect of social reality, where we want to change the social reality through education, understand the social reality, where those who are agents of society can take part in this, and then we can learn through that. So there are different projects of we are celebrating Gandhi's anniversary, whereby his ideas have been taken up by various others, and Ambedkar along with it. And I thank, in fact, Dr. Sanjay Sharma and the whole university, Sagar University, for first of all hosting this event and making us to be part of this. And I'm really happy. I've heard that this session has gone into several important speakers highlighting certain themes. And certainly it will have been, it has been very enriching to me. I mean, to know about this, that you all have been through it. Thank you. I think we can have some more question if, okay.
Uh, Thank you so much, sir, for delivering such an insightful and informative lecture. Your lectures give insight to understand the importance of Ambedkar in social science discourse. So I think we can have some questions from our listeners. If there is any question, you can raise your hand, and one by one we can provide the opportunity to ask the question. Anyone who wants to ask something? Yeah.
हेलो
आप चाहें तो हिंदी में भी कह सकते हैं, मैं हिंदी में भी बोल सकता हूँ.
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है. आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन अनटचेबिलिटी के बारे में.
आप नाम बताइए और फिर.
डॉक्टर दशरथ भिशे का नाम है.
बताइए.
मैं महाराष्ट्र से बोल रहा हूँ.
जी जी.
अनटचेबिलिटी के बारे में मेरा एक छोटा क्वेश्चन है. ये जो अनटचेबिलिटी है, ये सिर्फ हिंदू रिलीजन में है या अदर रिलीजन में भी है तो इसमें डिफरेंस क्या है?
Very interesting. Untouchability है, ऐसा नहीं. Society has a certain way of addressing these things. We have this हर एक सोशल सोसाइटी में कहीं इस तरह के बिहेवियर होते हैं whereby you protect, because social boundaries are based on that. If you see other kinds of, but these are part of the occupational. In many societies that it has gone through each the occupations, all these groups, untouchable groups are untouchable because they have been put to certain, it comes from the occupational associations. But these have been dogmatized, prescribed, made binding on these. In USA and UK and many other countries, if you'll see that there is a term called goldsmith, waterman, or many other kind of, these groups were there, Needham, or some of these were there, but the degree of it, untouchability, purity and impurity, or cleanliness, swachhata, and all those things are part of the human life. But the untouchability, the way Indian society went through various processes, whereby some of these old existing practices got crystallized and put into the social order and kept recrystallized and reinforced each time whenever there was a invasion or there was some kind of in-group identity formation. This has been part of the whole social movement in the society. If you see that how different groups have, but in untouchability in India has its a different kind of history which has gone through and very unique in comparison. Other societies have come out of it and or have been lessened. These are only in names. In fact, all the people who use this terminology, where association of individuals with the age-old practices have delinked. It hardly means what Needham. Needham was certain kind of untouchables in the United Kingdom and many other places. This, but they hardly mean. This is just a name in terms of. But they were the same groups which were existing at that time. दशरथ जी, हाँ बताइए इसमें। आई होप मैंने कुछ पॉइंट्स, अगर आप कुछ और जानना चाहते हैं तो
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सर, आई एम सेटिस्फाइड।
हेलो
संजय जी बताइए। हाँ
सर मैं अभी आगे पूरे व्याख्यान को सुन रहा था सर, और क्योंकि सोशल साइंस डिस्कोर्स में और डिसिप्लिन में शायद क्योंकि आपने एक बहुत लंबे समय तक आपका अनुभव रहा है, तो और आज की बातचीत से भी ये सवाल मुझे लगता है शायद बेहतर रूप से समझ पाऊँ मैं, वो ये कि तो ये कि मेरे दो सवाल है सर। पहला सवाल तो ये कि जब हम रेलिवेंस की बात करते हैं, जैसे आज की पूरी बातचीत पे थी डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर के रेलिवेंस को, सोशल थॉट को, उनके आइडियाज को, तो क्या सर जब अम्बेडकर को एक सोशल साइंटिस्ट या उसके सोशल साइंस विमर्श में पढ़ा जाता है, तो क्या वैसे ही पढ़ा जाता है या पढ़े जाने की जरूरत है जैसे बाकी और थिंकर को हम पढ़ते हैं, लाइक गांधी को या तमाम जो एस्टेब्लिश थिंकर थे जिनको पढ़ते हैं? एक तो ये सवाल। अच्छा, ये सवाल मैं आपसे इसलिए पूछ रहा हूँ सर, जानना चाहता हूँ ये कि जिन थिंकर्स को हम देखते हैं तो वो थिंकर्स अपने जमाने में ही, अपने समय में ही जो मेजोरिटेरियन जो एक फ्रेम था उसके साथ वो आ गए थे, बहुसंख्यक विचारों के साथ उनको लोगों ने स्वीकार कर लिया था, बहुसंख्यक लोगों ने। पर बाबा साहब को उस तरह से नहीं कर पाए। बाबा साहब एक लंबे समय तक एक माइनॉरिटी जो एक सेंटिमेंट थे उसी के साथ रहे। तो इस हालात में तो बाबा साहब को पढ़ते समय, उनकी रीडिंग्स को पढ़ते समय हमें किस तरह की सावधानी बरतने की आवश्यकता है? क्या वैसे ही पढ़ें जैसे बाकी लोगों को पढ़ते हैं, जो एस्टेब्लिश्ड उस तरह से जो किसी भी डिसिप्लिन में थिंकर? तो दूसरा ये कि क्या हम ये अभी उस वाली स्थिति में आ गए हैं जहां पर हम लोग जो अम्बेडकरिज्म है, जो एक इज्म के रूप में हम अगर उसे देखें, तो क्या वो एक पैराडाइम में मजबूती से स्थापित हो चुका है या उसकी क्या मेथोडोलॉजी को डिफरेंट तरह से हमें आप अपनानी पड़ेगी? जी सर, आई होप मैं
बहुत चुनिंदा सवाल है आपका। ये अम्बेडकर या गांधी या ऐसे बहुत जितने भी थिंकर्स आए हमारे यहाँ आए, या विवेकानंद, ये सब आपका कहना सही है। ये एक हिस्टोरिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आए और वो अपने परिस्थिति में रह के जी करके जो उन्होंने देखा और जो उन्होंने समझा, जो उन्होंने किया, और तो उसके हिसाब से अपने उपदेश या अपने विचार प्रस्तुत की। उस समय, उस अंतरकाल में उनकी वो बातें काफी यथार्थ है। और उस समय अगर, लेकिन अभी जब उनको देखा जाए, अब के परिस्थिति में वो क्या कह रहे थे वो ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है समझना, बशर्ते कि उसको अक्षरशः वहीं तक लिमिट कर देना। कई बार ये गांधी के साथ भी होता है। गांधी क्या सिर्फ वो चरखा चलाना ही चाहते थे, या उस समय तक बहुत सारे लोग गांधी के विचारों को चरखा चलाने तक ही सीमित समझते हैं और बुनियादी शिक्षा को वहीं तक मानते हैं। अम्बेडकर का विचार जो है उसी रूप से ये नहीं था कि सिर्फ वो अनटचेबल्स थे उसी के बारे में, वो एक प्रोसेस की बात कर रहे थे। उनका कहना था कि अगर ऐसा रहता तो सबके लिए बात करते। ये ऑपरेशन जो है, ये दिमागी उपज, जो ये प्रोसेस जो ये शुरू होता है, कहाँ शुरू होता है, कैसे शुरू होता है, कैसे इसको मैं खुद देखता हूँ कि अपने फैमिली में ही जो मैं देखता हूँ, महिलाएं या और कोई वर्ग या कोई ऐसा आदमी जो ऑपरेशन में जा रहा है, ऑपरेस्ट हो रहा है किसी दूसरे कारणों से, ये ऐतिहासिक प्रक्रिया को समझने की जरूरत है। और हर एक जहाँ भी ये हुआ है, चाहे वो रेस के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हो, चाहे कास्ट के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हो, इसको समझने की जरूरत है। और अम्बेडकर को मैसेज को, ऑपरेशन को कैसे, ये ऑपरेशन फ्री सोसाइटी, ये जो उसमें कैसे हम अपने आप को आगे बढ़ाएं, उसमें ये करें जो इन चीजों को जन्म देता है। वो ये भी कहते हैं कि कई बार अगर ऑपरेस्ट का वो वहाँ पे इनका जो डिफरेंसेस था, जो वो बैकवर्ड और ये सब को, और जो छोटे छोटे डिफरेंट ग्रेडेड हायरार्की जो थी, जिसमें बहुत सारी जातियां हैं, और उसमें ये करके इसको समझने की जरूरत है डुअल फ्रेमवर्क में लेकर के। कैसे कई बार वो कहते हैं कि जी ऑपरेशन का जो है, कई बार ऑपरेस्ट जो है, अगर वो फिर ऑपरेशन के रूप में उसको रोल दे दिया जाए तो वो और ज्यादा उसके मतलब उसके डिफरेंट मायने होते हैं। और वो कहते थे कि ये हमारा काम उसको ये नहीं है कि जो पहले एक ऑपरेशन था उसको ऑपरेशन बनाना, बल्कि ऑपरेशन एज ए प्रोसेस को खत्म, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। जो प्रोसेस से लेकर के क्यों ऐसी चीजें होती है कि इस तरह का, और कहीं ना कहीं ये चीजों को ये क्वेश्चन करने की जरूरत है। इसीलिए उनका जो एजुकेट, एजुटेट एंड ऑर्गेनाइज वाला बात था, जो आइडेंटिटी क्रिएट करना, दैट वाज फर्स्ट फेज। कई जगह ये कहा जाता है कि एजुकेट, ऑर्गेनाइज एंड एजुटेट। वो एक एजुटेट को हम बाद में रखते हैं, इसलिए कि जो यहाँ पे उनका आइडेंटिटी पहले इंपॉर्टेंट था उनके लिए, कि जो these groups of people, there can be identity based on discrimination। कई बार हम लोग वो क्या है, तो कैसे हो सकता है, तो सिंबल्स के रूप में जो सिंबल्स इनका है तो उसको कैसे यूज कर सकते हैं, बट दैट इज जस्ट एन एग्जाम्पल। तो जब भी ये थिंकर्स, वो चाहे वो गांधी हो या जो ये है, वो किसी कंटेक्स्ट में अगर बोले हैं तो हमको कई बार क्या होता है कि हम उनकी बातों में कैद हो जाते हैं और कहीं ना कहीं उसी में रह के जीना चाहते हैं। हमको इससे बाहर भी निकलना, और तभी उनका मकसद, वही चीज पॉल फेरे ने कहा। पॉल फेरे ये कहते हैं कि क्वेश्चन करिए, आप क्रिटिकल कॉन्शियस रहिए, कोई भी चीज अगर आपको बताई जाए तो उसको सुनिए। अगर मैं भी ये कह रहा हूँ, अगर पॉल फेरे हिमसेल्फ, मुझे इनफैक्ट आई वाज फॉर्चुनेट एनफ टू मीट हिम इन पर्सन एट लंदन, एंड वहां पे उन्होंने मुझे कहा था कि मैंने बहुत सारी किताबें लिखी है पेडागोगिक ऑपरेशन के बाद, लेकिन लोग उसी को याद करते हैं। I just bought a book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and wanted his autograph। तो कहा कि आपने मेरी और किताबें पढ़े हैं क्या? मैंने कहा नहीं सर, मैं यही पढ़ा हूँ और इसी को ये करके। नहीं, मैंने और भी बहुत सारी किताबें लिखी है उसके बाद, और वहाँ उससे मैंने अपना पोजीशन चेंज भी किया है। एक थिंकर जो है ना, वो अपने पोजीशन वो बदलते रहते हैं। गांधी जी भी बोलते थे कि मैं जो 10 साल पहले कहा, कुछ समय पहले कहा, और मैं अभी जो कह रहा हूँ, अभी जो कह रहा हूँ आप उसको पकड़ो। पहले जो कहा था वो मैं उस समय की परिस्थिति में कहा था। इसलिए आदमी को ये देखना चाहिए कि आदमी खुद इवॉल्व होता है और ये सोसाइटी आगे बढ़ते हुए जाती है, और हम लोग को नए नए विचार, नए नई जो बातें होती है वो हमारे दिमाग में आती है, और उन चीजों को हम लें जो कि उससे निकल गया, रादर देन कभी किसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर कोई बातें हो तो हम उसी से अपने आप को सीमित नहीं करें। और कोई बातें हो तो फिर आवाज नहीं आ रही है क्या? आपकी आवाज इधर नहीं आ रही है शायद। आपका तो आपने जी
मैम माइक म्यूट है आपका, मैम माइक म्यूट है आपका।
आवाज नहीं आ रही है शायद।
मैम एक बार रिजॉइन हो जाइए, रिजॉइन।
आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
अब आ रही है, अब आ रही है।
जी जी। किसी और के कोई प्रश्न है कोई, तो वो पूछ सकता है।
एक बात भी मैं कहना चाहता था, तो इसमें
जी
जस्ट पुरानी बातों से जोड़ते हुए,
जी
कि
सर।
जो अंबेडकर ने जैसे कहा कि जो कन्वर्जन टू बुद्धिज्म, कन्वर्जन टू बुद्धिज्म, और जो ये था एक रिलीजियस, एक रिलीजन को छोड़ करके दूसरे रिलीजन में जाना, ये एक धर्म परिवर्तन के रूप में नहीं देखा जाना चाहिए। इसको एक कंसेंटाइजेशन प्रोसेस है ये, कि अगर आप एक वर्ल्ड व्यू को छोड़ करके दूसरे वर्ल्ड व्यू में आप जाते हैं, वो जो वर्ल्ड व्यू आपको, वो नए वर्ल्ड व्यू जो होता है, कई बार कन्वर्जन को एक डिफरेंट ढंग से लिया जाता है। तो ये अंबेडकर का ये प्रोपोगेशन की हम हिंदुइज्म के अंदर अपने आप को इन चीजों को नहीं एड्रेस कर सकते। उन्होंने करके उन्होंने कन्वर्जन को कंसंट्राइजेशन के रूप में लिया। इट वाज जस्ट एन एग्जांपल दैट ही वांटेड टू शो। ऐसा नहीं था कि जो वो, और वो नहीं जानते थे कि जो एक आज न कल जितने भी ये अनटचेबल्स हैं, जो भी हैं, इनका आर्थिक विकास होगा, सब कुछ होगा, और वो नहीं होगा जो जिसकी जरूरत है। वो है कि ये विचारधारा जिसके अंतर्गत किसी को ये जो एक ऊंचे नीचे की भावना होती है, ये हायरार्की जो कि प्योरिटी पोल्यूशन की भावना है, इसको जो ये आइडियोलॉजिकल फ्रेमवर्क है उसको चैलेंज करने की बात तो कह रहे थे उसमें।
हेलो मैम।
जी सर, बताएं।
मैडम नमस्ते मैडम।
जी जी दयानंद जी।
हाँ मैडम, सर जी से मेरा प्रश्न है, भारत स्वतंत्र होकर मैडम 70 साल से भी अधिक दिन बीत गए। गांधी जी ने भी कहा कि अस्पृश्यता देश के लिए, हिंदू समाज के लिए कलंक है। विवेकानंद जी अपना तो सर्वस्व अर्पित कर पाया, परंतु आज भी मैडम अस्पृश्यता जितनी कम होनी चाहिए, बिल्कुल मेरे विचार से तो ग्राम स्तर पर तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा बढ़ रही है। पढ़े लिखे लोग ही मैडम शायद इसका परिहार न करते हुए भी उस पे ही मैडम मिलते जा रहे हैं। तो आखिर गांधी ने भी कहा कि इसे त्यागना चाहिए, गांधी की भी बात नहीं मान पाए। विवेकानंद जी ने कहा, प्रमुख विचारवंत ने कहा, आखिर हमारे हिंदूवादी लोग, जातिवादी लोग मैडम आखिर किसकी बात मानते हैं, जिसे हम राष्ट्रपिता मानते हैं मैडम। राष्ट्रपिता की बात मानना चाहिए, आखिर मानते किसकी बात मैडम, क्योंकि कलंक है, देश की उन्नति के लिए बहुत बड़ा मारक है अस्पृश्यता जो अस्त्र है। आखिर मैडम हमारे जो नेता हैं मैडम, बड़े बड़े नेता केवल एक अस्पृश्यता के झोपड़े में जाकर खाना खाने कहते कि बिल्कुल अस्पृश्यता दूर हो जाएगी। मैडम कहाँ तक सही है ये सोच, मतलब कब बदलेगी ये सोच भारत देश में? सर यही मेरा प्रश्न है सर।
नहीं, सही है आपका ये प्रश्न। मैं इस बात को, चूंकि जो बदलाव इस समाज में आने चाहिए थी वो अभी हुए नहीं है, इसलिए अंबेडकर या गांधी जी के जो प्रयास थे वो अभी भी अधूरे हैं, और उसे हम लोगों को पूरा करना है। और इसके लिए एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट बात, वही जो हम लोग पहले से भी जो अंबेडकर की वो बातें की, जो ये हमारी विचारधारा जो कैसे एक नए भारत या नए देश, इस नए समाज के निर्माण में शिक्षा का क्या उपयोग होगा। और यहीं पे जो ये पॉल फेरे या और सारे लोग जो कहते हैं कि जो शिक्षा जो क्लासरूम में जो होता है, जहाँ की वो दिमाग की खेती जो है, दिमाग की उपज जो होनी चाहिए, वो कैसा समाज के बारे में होना चाहिए, जो कि जिसमें ये इस तरह की अस्पृश्यता या इस तरह का अछूत की भावना, अछूत की भावना जो है लोगों में, ये इस पे अटैक करना बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। और ये इसका पार्ट है, यही बात है कि जो पॉल फेरे जैसे बोलते हैं कि अभी का जो एजुकेशन सिस्टम है वो कन्वेंशनल एजुकेशन सिस्टम है, अभी भी उसी तरह का है। कि जो खास करके नई टेक्नोलॉजी आने के बाद ये और ज्यादा हो गया है कि जो भी टेक्नोलॉजी कहती है, somehow we are in the habit of accepting, और उसी को ग्रहण करने की आदत हो गई है कि जो टेक्नोलॉजी देगी हम उसको अपनाएंगे या करेंगे उसमें। उसी तरह जैसा कि पहले के सिस्टम में था कि जो किसी ने कह दिया तो हमने उसे मान लिया, भले। तो ये एजुकेशन सिस्टम, जिसको उन्होंने कि बैंकिंग सिस्टम भी कहा, कि जो ये उस तरह का सिस्टम है जो लोग क्वेश्चन नहीं करते, उसे स्वीकार करते हैं। और एजुकेशन का मतलब ये शुरू का प्रोसेस था, जब एक कई बार ये होता है ना कोचिंग में या कई इस तरह में, जो आप यू डू नॉट क्वेश्चन समाज में। इसलिए सामाजिक अध्ययन जो भी है, इसका एक प्रयास ये है कि समाज में किस तरह से सामाजिक परिवर्तन हो, उन विचारधाराओं को लाए और उन विचारधाराओं को लेकर के हम उसमें ये इस चीज को करें। तो पीछे छोड़ दिया। और इसीलिए जब गांधी भी कहते थे कि जब हम बुनियादी शिक्षा लाएंगे, तो बुनियादी शिक्षा में उन्होंने सबसे नीचे तबके के जो ऑक्यूपेशन है उनको भी उसके वहां पे करने के लिए उन्होंने कहा कि जो उसको हम माध्यम बनाए वो सीखने का। और वो सिर्फ ये माध्यम ये ही नहीं, वो साइंस भी है, उसमें साइंस भी है, उसमें आर्ट्स भी है, तो सारा चीज है उसमें। एक क्राफ्टमैन जो है, एक पोट्री मेकिंग जो है, एक ये सब उसके अंदर भले लोअर प्रोफेशन में माना जाएगा, लेकिन एक पोटर के अंदर में जो सॉइल का नॉलेज है, डिफरेंट तरह का ये सारा चीज है, ये कहाँ से बदलेगा? वो सब चीज जो है शिक्षा व्यवस्था के अंदर में लाने की जरूरत है। बहुत सारे देशों में ये होता है, पता नहीं हमारे यहाँ इस तरह के जो शिक्षा संबंधी सुधार है वो अभी तक हो नहीं पाए हैं। इतना जो हमें हमारे जितने नॉलेज है, इंडिजिनस सिस्टम ऑफ नॉलेज, जहाँ की ये सारी चीजें हमारे सिस्टम में पर आज के दिन कोई भी आदमी अपने पुरानी जो ज्ञान है उसको आगे नहीं बढ़ाना चाहता। अपने माँ बाप के अगर कोई ऐसे स्किल हैं जो कि उन्होंने सीखे हैं, उसको आगे लेके जाना नहीं चाहता। जब तक उसे उसको हम विद्यालय में उसको उसके सही रूप को प्रस्तुत करेंगे और उसको पाठ्यक्रम का पार्ट बनाएंगे, तब तक ये होना मुश्किल है। मतलब ये इसलिए ये जरूरी है कि जो जब भी हम, चाहे अम्बेडकर हो या गांधी हो या विवेकानंद हो या कोई और भी जो जिन्होंने ये बात कही है, उन चीजों के, उन मूल्यों को लेकर के हमें क्लासरूम में करना है, वो शिक्षा व्यवस्था का पार्ट होना चाहिए।
जी जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, बहुत बहुत सुंदर विचार सर आपके।
थैंक यू। और कोई बातें हो तो
मैडम और एक प्रश्न करूं मैं?
कीजिए।
जी जी दयानंद जी बोले।
सर जैसा कि हम बचपन से सर हम पढ़ते आए हैं पांचों के, जैसा कि हमारी समझ है सर, तो किसी के भी सर विचार हैं, चाहे साधु हो, संत हो या नेता हो, उसमें एक समाज में परिवर्तन लाने की भावना हम पढ़ पाते थे सर। परंतु आज की जो राजनीतिक है, आज को जो नेता है, चाहे किसी प्रांत का मुख्यमंत्री हो या भारत देश का प्रधानमंत्री हो, परंतु सर देश में एक सबसे बड़ी समस्या में एक समस्या है सर, अस्पृश्यता की समस्या। परंतु मैंने सर जहाँ तक मेरी समझ किसी के मुख से कहीं भी नहीं सुना कि भारत देश में अस्पृश्यता एक बहुत बड़ा कलंक है, इसे मिटाने के लिए हम प्रणय कर पाते। आइए हम सब मिलके इस दूरी को, हम इस समस्या को दूर कर पाते हैं। या किसी मुख्यमंत्री के मुख से सुना न, आज एक प्रधानमंत्री हमारे सर एक बिल्कुल तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, उनके विचार सोच, परंतु मैंने कभी नहीं सुना कि सर कि आइए ये जो समस्या, ये जड़ जो भारत देश में पनप रहे, इसे मिटाने का हम प्रयास कर पाते हैं। परंतु शायद इसे मिटाने के लिए भी ये सोच आनी चाहिए सर, परंतु क्यों नहीं आ पाती, ये मेरा प्रश्न।
ये सही है दयानंद जी आपका कहना, कि जो ये बातें होनी चाहिए और हर हर सिरे पे होनी चाहिए। मैं ये इस बात को जानना कि ये सारी बातें लेकिन तभी होगी जब ये हमारी दिनचर्या का पार्ट होगा। कई बार क्या होता है कि जो, चलिए नेता आज कोई बोलते हैं, कोई नहीं बोलते हैं, या कोई बोल के चले जाते हैं लेकिन बोलते हैं करते नहीं हैं, या करते हैं तो
गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड मॉर्निंग।
तो ये जो कुछ बातें हैं, ये जब तक हमारी शिक्षा व्यवस्था का हिस्सा नहीं होगा, ये कई बार ये होता है कि जो हम इन चीजों को, ये यही बात थी कि जो गांधी यहाँ पे काफी इम्पोर्टेंट माने जाते, जब उन्होंने कहा कि हम अपने शौचालय का या वो खुद साफ करेंगे, खुद ऐसा काम करेंगे जो कि इसमें ऐसा नहीं कि कोई एक ऐसा वर्ग होगा ये इस तरह का काम करेगा, ऐसा कोई व्यवसाय नहीं हो जो कि छूत और अछूत के विचारों से ये। तो अभी जो समस्या आ रही है ये खास करके देश में, हमारे देश में, उसका ये है कि ये जो एक ऐतिहासिक पहलू था, अब उसको इस ढंग से किया जा रहा है कि कोई उसे उस चीजों को कुरेदने की जरूरत है कि आखिर इसमें क्या है, आप उसे बताओ तो सही।
ये वही तो प्रश्न है सर, ये तो बहुत बड़ी जड़ है सर ये।
नहीं, सही है आपका कहना।
जी।
ये चीजें जो है ना हमारे शिक्षा व्यवस्था का पार्ट होना चाहिए। जब तक हम वो चीज, कई बार बहुत सारे जगहों में स्कूल में आप जाएंगे, तो कुछ स्कूल जो मैं देखा था, एक दो स्कूल मैंने बाहर भी देखे, विदेशों में भी, जहाँ की ये रोल प्लेइंग होता है, जिसमें अगर कोई अछूत अछूत इस तरह की जो बातें होती है, इसको रोल प्लेइंग के रूप में आप कैसे बच्चों के दिमाग में इस चीज को कहेंगे, सिमुलेशन एक्सरसाइजेज हैं, कैसे इन चीजों को एक टीचर किस ढंग से इसे डील करेगा, कैसे इसको बताएगा, क्या क्या चीजें हैं, ऐतिहासिक पहलू प्लस सामाजिक और इसके और भी जितने आयाम हैं, सबको समझने की जरूरत है। और जब तक ये शिक्षा व्यवस्था का पाठ नहीं होगा और तब तक ये समस्या हमारे लोगों के बीच से जाएगी नहीं। और इसीलिए वो उदाहरण होना, बी द चेंज यू वांट टू ब्रिंग इन द सोसाइटी। तो कई बार ये गांधी का जो शब्द है ये भी काफी इम्पोर्टेंट है कि जो काफी जिस चीज को ये कहते थे डिफरेंट वे से, अंबेडकर हालांकि एक डिफरेंट अप्रोच था उनका, लेकिन वो हमको लगता है दोनों काफी क्लोज थे। गांधी का एक मैसेज ये था कि जो प्रैक्टिस के रूप में दिखाते थे, अंबेडकर उसको चूंकि वो एक उस प्रोसेस से गुजरे थे खुद। ये जो है ना सोशल साइंसेज में हम क्या होता है कि ज्यादातर रियलिटी जो दूसरे के द्वारा समझी गई लिखी गई उसी को बताते हैं, समझते हैं। एक एक्सपीरियंशियल रियलिटी होती है जो कि हर एक आदमी महसूस करता है, और वो रियलिटी जब जो आदमी महसूस करता है वही वो समझ सकता है। तो अंबेडकर का ये कहना कि यू कैन नॉट अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट वी हैव गॉन थ्रू, एक ये जो था कि जो एक ऑपरेस्ट जो है वो किस समस्या से गुजरता है, उसको जो ये एक्सपीरियंशियल रियलिटी है, इसको वही आदमी समझ सकता है जो उस प्रोसेस से गुजरा हो। ये चीज जो है ना अंबेडकर इसको एम्फसाइज करता था, जो कि अपने आप में जो बाहर के और सारे लोग जो थे, गांधी में एक दोनों में डिफरेंस था कि गांधी वो उसको एक्सपीरियंस करने के लिए बात करते थे कि आप उसको एक्सपीरियंस करो। ये कहते हैं कि हम ऑलरेडी उसमें गुजरे हुए हैं, और उससे सोच करके मैंने ये बात कहा है। तो गांधी की जैसे गांधी के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट था कि वो गरीबों की तरह रहना चाहते, अपने आप को तो वैसे ही कपड़े पहनना, उस तरह के काज करना। अंबेडकर ने उसको डिफरेंट ढंग से कहा कि कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि हम कपड़े बदले ही, उनके लिए वही कोर्ट में रहना, ये करना, वो उन्होंने उसको समझा, लेकिन मैसेज दोनों का एक ही था। ऐसा नहीं था कि उन्होंने ये कहा करके, तो इस बात तो दोनों को कई बार हम लोग समझते हैं कि दोनों बहुत अलग थे, बात वो नहीं था, कहने का तरीका अलग था, समझाने का तरीका अलग था, लेकिन थे दोनों। ये हमारे फ्रीडम मूवमेंट्स के दौरान में कुछ ऐसे लीडर्स हुए जिन्होंने सामाजिक प्रक्रिया को समझा किया और उस ढंग से अपने करने के विचार करते रहने के विचार दिए। तो इन लोगों के विचार जो है बहुत ही सारगर्भित हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि जो उसमें ये करके दोनों के मेथड्स अलग हो सकते हैं, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं ये दोनों एक दूसरे को कन्वर्ज करते हैं। और इस बात को समझने की जरूरत है, हमें दोनों की जरूरत है। हमें ऐसा नहीं है कि हमें गांधी की भी जरूरत है, हमें अम्बेडकर के विचारों की भी जरूरत है, और दोनों में समानताओं को देखते हुए कैसे हम इन चीजों को अपनी शिक्षा व्यवस्था या सामाजिक व्यवस्था या धार्मिक सुधार और जो भी आर्थिक सुधार हमें देश में लाने हैं, करने हैं, उसको करने की जरूरत है। और इसी को लेकर के तभी जा करके हमारे शिक्षा व्यवस्था या हमारी सामाजिक व्यवस्था, हमारी न्याय व्यवस्था, हमारी और जितनी भी व्यवस्थाएं हैं उसमें सुधार हो सकता है।
जी सर, बिल्कुल सही बात आपने कहा कि एक तो हमें अपनी इस समझ को थोड़ा सा बढ़ाना पड़ेगा कि गांधी अंबेडकर दो विरोधी विचार के लोग नहीं है, बल्कि वो एक ही जो समाज से निकले हुए हैं। हाँ, उनके तरीके अलग हैं। जैसे अस्पृश्यता को लेकर हम लोग बात करें तो जहां अंबेडकर जोर देते हैं कि भाई कड़े कानून होने चाहिए अस्पृश्यता को रोकने के लिए, हमें संवैधानिक और कानूनी प्रावधान जो है वो बात करनी चाहिए। वहीं गांधी जब इस बात को कहते हैं कि सिर्फ कानून बनाने से कुछ नहीं होगा, बल्कि हमें वो मानसिकता को परिवर्तित करना होगा। जब हर एक आदमी अपनी अंतरात्मा से इस बात को स्वीकार करे कि जो अस्पृश्यता है वो अभिशाप है और हमें उससे मुक्त होना है, तो ये जो दोनों के विचार हैं वो एक दूसरे को कहीं ना कहीं एक दूसरे के लिए बहुत जरूरी है। दोनों को हमें साथ लेके ही चलना पड़ेगा, तभी शायद हम ये कर पाएंगे। क्योंकि जब तक समाज की मानसिकता नहीं बदलेगी, जब तक हम जो लोग हैं जो उस चीज को बुरा समझते हैं लेकिन उसको दूर करने का कोई प्रयास नहीं करते हैं। अक्सर हम देखते हैं जब आप शिक्षा व्यवस्था की भी बात करते हैं कि शिक्षा में इस तरह का परिवर्तन होना चाहिए, हमें क्लासरूम पेडागोगी चेंज करनी चाहिए, वहां पर हमें इंक्लूसिव एक जो तरीका है उस तरह से हमें उनको इंक्लूड करना चाहिए। लेकिन सिद्धांत में तो ये चीजें लगता है कि हाँ बहुत इजी है और बहुत बिल्कुल होना ही चाहिए। लेकिन सवाल ये उठता है कि 70 साल आज हो गए हैं, बहुत सारी एजुकेशन पॉलिसीज हमने बना ली, उसमें इन सारी चीजों को हमने इंक्लूड भी किया है, बट उसे एग्जीक्यूट क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे हैं? क्या वजह है कि अभी भी हम ये बात स्वीकार करते हैं कि हाँ, इस तरह की हमारी शिक्षा पद्धति में परिवर्तन होना चाहिए, जो कैटलिस्ट है जो एक्सक्लूजन को दूर करने के लिए, वो शिक्षा या क्लासरूम से ही निकल कर आएगा, और टीचर की क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है उस पर भी हम सहमत हैं, लेकिन उसे हम एग्जीक्यूट क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे हैं? क्या वजह है कि हम उसे परिवर्तित नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, स्टूडेंट्स तक हम वो चीजें नहीं ले जा पा रहे हैं? देखा जाए तो जब ये अंबेडकर और गांधी का जमाना था, उस समय ये सारी समस्याएं बहुत अधिक थी और उस पर बात भी हो रही थी। फिर हम आजाद हुए, हमने आधुनिकता की बात की, हमने हमारा डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस स्ट्रक्चर्स हमने क्रिएट किए, हमारे प्रोसेस आगे बढ़े, लेकिन आज 2020 में भी आके हम उन्हीं प्रश्नों से जूझ रहे हैं। तो ऐसा क्यों है सर? वो आप कैसे देखते हैं, क्या कमी रह गई है, कहाँ पर चीजों को हमको और ज्यादा फोकस करने की जरूरत है?
नहीं, ये कहना आपका सही है कि जैसे आपने कहा कि ये दोनों विचार के जो गांधी और अंबेडकर जो हैं, इसके विचार अलग हो सकते हैं लेकिन एक दूसरे के पूरक हैं। इसमें अंबेडकर को लेकर के मुझे एक बात जो मुझे ये लगता है, जैसा कि उनके अंबेडकर और गांधी को विरोधी के रूप में कभी ऐसे भी प्रस्तुत किए जाते हैं, लेकिन मुझे दोनों एक जैसे लगते हैं और दोनों के विचार और दोनों की प्रक्रियाएं उसमें हो सकती है। अंबेडकर का ये कहना कि जो अनटचेबिलिटी को उन्होंने लिया, अनटचेबिलिटी का मतलब होता है कि जो हमको आपसे कुछ नहीं लेना, एक सोशल कम्युनिकेशन, लैक ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन, एब्सेंस ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन। अगर हम एक दूसरे से जुड़ेंगे नहीं तब तक ये समाज का ये पार्ट होना नहीं चाहिए। कि मतलब लोगों में अनटचेबिलिटी इस ढंग तक आ जाए कि किसी के शैडो से भी आप दूर रहना चाहें। इस तरह का जो सोशल कम्युनिकेशन जो है, ये एंटी सोशल है। ये बिहेवियर जो है किसी भी आदमी का, वो एनिमल के साथ भी नहीं हो सकता, और एनिमल के तरह ही है कि जब आप किसी को अगर ट्रीट करते हैं ह्यूमन बींग्स को, इसमें जो ह्यूमन वर्थ, ह्यूमनिज्म जो है, ये इसको अंबेडकर ने है कि ऑल द ह्यूमन बींग्स, उनका ये कहना जैसे ये था कि अकॉर्डिंग टू डेमोक्रेटिक प्रिंसिपल्स, जो भी ये दुनिया में जितने भी धर्म सुधारक बातें हुई है, उसमें ये है कि ऑल ह्यूमन बींग्स आर बॉर्न इक्वल, but they become unequal because of the society in which they are born. जबकि इधर ये इन्होंने कहा कि जबकि इंडियन हिंदू सिस्टम में एक ऐसा हुआ कि ऑल पीपल आर बोर्न अनइक्वल, यू आर बोर्न इन ए अनइक्वल फैमिली एंड लेटर यू ट्राई टू मेक योरसेल्फ इक्वल बाय डिफरेंट प्रोसेस। तो ये दो डिफरेंट जो अप्रोचेस है, ये कि ह्यूमन जो है, सारे ह्यूमन बींग्स एज पर they are equal in terms of with all the potentialities and other things. People may be born in unequal situation, but that is not that they are unequal in true sense. तो ये जो इनइक्वालिटी की जो बातें हैं, इसका जो वो उन्होंने ये कहा था, अंबेडकर का कंट्रीब्यूशन इनइक्वालिटी को समझने के लिए काफी इम्पोर्टेंट है, इसके कि जहाँ पर उन्होंने कहा कि देयर हैज टू बी सम काइंड ऑफ अ डायलॉग। Absence of communication is not the solution of problems. अगर आप अपने आप को एक ऐसा समय था कि जब not only Dalits but even the women were not allowed to read and write. तो एक ऐसा सिचुएशन था जिसमें कि बहुत सारे लोगों को एक प्रोसेस ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन से जो था उससे दूर किया गया था। तो लैक ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन जो है, ये बहुत बड़ा कारण होता है किसी सामाजिक समस्याओं को। ये इसलिए ये अंबेडकर की ये विचारधारा की जो हमें अनटचेबिलिटी को, इन्होंने ये कहा अनटचेबिलिटी एक सिम्टम है, और ये क्या वो जो था, ये समाज में चली आ रही जितनी भी व्यवस्थाएं हैं जिसमें लोगों के बीच में दूरियां इतनी हो गई कि उस दूरियों को हमने एक उसको वंशानुगत रूप में देख करके, और उसे जो कि सदियों से चली आ रही है, और इसको हटाने के लिए ताकि ये फिर से दूसरा कोई अनटचेबल पैदा ना हो, इस तरह का सिचुएशन ना हो, तो उस तरह की जो समस्याएं हैं जो समाज में नहीं होनी चाहिए, और इसको दूर कर सकता है सामाजिक व्यवस्था या समाज में शिक्षा की व्यवस्था जो है, जो उसमें सुधार लाने की बात करते हैं, वो उससे हम लोगों को इस पे ध्यान देना चाहिए।
जी, किसी और का कोई प्रश्न है?
मैडम, मेरा एक छोटा सवाल है।
जी दर्शक जी बताएं।
कोरोना काल में हम सब ने देखा मैडम कि अनटचेबिलिटी बढ़ी है। एक समाज को हमने टारगेट बनाया था, मैं उस समाज का नाम भी लिया तो कुछ बुरा नहीं है इसमें, तबलीगी समाज। तबलीगी समाज के को हम सब ने टारगेट बनाया उनको। और जो गरीब मुसलमान है, जो सब्जी बेचते थे, उनका पूरा चरित्र ही इनके ऊपर था, सब्जी बेचने के और छोटे छोटे व्यवसाय के ऊपर था। तो वो बंद हो गए, उनसे सब्जी भी खरीदी नहीं जाती थी। इस मानसिकता को हम क्या कहें? इसमें शिक्षक, प्राध्यापक और प्रोफेसर भी शामिल है। हमारे मोहल्ले में अगर वो टोपी दिखी तो वो बाहर जाओ ऐसे कहते थे, वो शिक्षक प्रोफेसर भी। तो इस मानसिकता को हम क्या कहें?
नहीं, ये विचार मैं समझ सकता हूँ कि ये उस दौरान में हुआ है। इनफैक्ट जो कोरोना के दौरान जो बहुत सारे जो सोशल जो कम्युनिकेशन जो ये कैसे होता है, आपको जैसे लगा, मैं समझ सकता हूँ, ये भावनात्मक चीज है कि जो कभी अगर किसी के साथ, आज के कंटेक्स्ट में आप देख रहे हैं, लेकिन ये सोचिए कि ये किसी वर्ग के साथ, किसी के साथ काफी समय से होता चला आ रहा है, और इसको कैसे हम डील कर सकते हैं उसमें, तो ये इम्पोर्टेंट है। इसको समझने की जरूरत की जो ये अनटचेबिलिटी एक सिम्टम जो सोसाइटी में आई है, कितना डीप रूटेड है, जो उसको नीड्स टू अंडरस्टैंड। प्रोफेसर थोराट को नमस्कार।
वेरी वार्म वेलकम थोराट सर। सर, कोरोना पीरियड की जैसे आपने बात की, तो मुझे लगता है कोरोना पीरियड में कुछ चीजें तो बहुत उभर कर आई हैं, लेकिन एक हमारे सामने एक और प्रश्न भी खड़ा हुआ है। इस पीरियड ने बहुत साफ तौर से ये चीजें दिखाई हैं कि हमको अपने सोच को अभी बदलने की जरूरत है। और ये जो राजनीतिक रूप से जब मैनिपुलेट किया जाता है और हम उस मैनिपुलेशन में बह जाते हैं, बहुत पढ़े लिखे लोग भी, तो वो एक इस पीरियड ने इस चीज को बहुत ही खूबसूरती से सामने लेकर आया है कि अभी लोगों को जागरूक होना पड़ेगा। उनको चीजों को, जो भी प्रोजेक्शन हो रहा है जिस तरह का, उसको आंख बंद करके एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना है। आपको स्वयं ये देखना पड़ेगा कि ये चीजें कैसी हैं, क्योंकि जिस तरह से इस दौरान में जो मीडिया का रोल रहा, जिसने बड़ा कुछ, जो अभी दर्शक जी ने ये सवाल पूछा था उसी से रिलेटेड मुझे लगता है कि हम लोगों को ये सोचना पड़ेगा कि समाज व्यवस्था बदलने के लिए सिर्फ सरकारों के ऊपर या सिर्फ हम शिक्षकों और दूसरे जो हमारे समाजकर्ता हैं उनके ऊपर हम निर्भर नहीं रह सकते। एज ए इंडिविजुअल हमारी क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है वो हमें समझना पड़ेगा। और एक व्यक्ति होने के नाते, एक समाज का हिस्सा होने के नाते, हम सबको अपनी अपनी भूमिका को निर्वाह करना ही पड़ेगा। जैसे अगर आप कह रहे हैं कि आपके मोहल्ले में इस तरह की घटनाएं हुई हैं और आपके सामने किसी गरीब व्यक्ति के साथ इस तरह का भेदभाव हो रहा है, तो आपको खुद आवाज उठानी पड़ेगी। और शायद तभी हम ये जो अस्पृश्यता है, छुआछूत है, भेदभाव है, इसको हम खत्म कर पाएंगे। तो हमें ये सोचने की जरूरत है कि एज ए इंडिविजुअल, एक व्यक्ति के रूप में, समाज के एक जिम्मेदार नागरिक होने के नाते, हम अपनी भूमिका कैसे निर्वाह करें और कैसे अपने आसपास के लोगों को इस बात को समझाएं, इस बात को महसूस कराएं कि वो भी हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं और हम उनके साथ खड़े हुए हैं। ये बहुत जरूरी है कि हम इन चीजों को लेकर अवेयर भी हो और साथ ही साथ दूसरों को भी अवेयर करें। एज अ टीचर, जैसा सर ने अपने पूरे लेक्चर के दौरान कहा कि हम सब शिक्षक हैं और हमारी भूमिका ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण इसलिए हो जाती है कि हमारे हाथों में उन बच्चों का भविष्य है जो आगे चलकर देश के निर्माण में अपनी भूमिका निभाएंगे। तो एज अ टीचर हम सबको अपनी उस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को ज्यादा गंभीरता से लेने की जरूरत है। जी रामचंद्र जी।
हाँ मैडम, मैं फ्रॉम महाराष्ट्र। हमारे पास मेरे कॉलेज में एक तेलंगाना के प्रोफेसर है इंग्लिश के। उन्हें ऐसी एक बात करी थी कि अभी जो कई प्रेजेंट पॉलिटिक्स जो कहीं चल रहा है, उनका मुझे एक ऑब्जर्वेशन के बारे में मैं बात कर रहा हूँ। मैं उन्हें ऐसा करा था कि अभी हैदराबाद के जो म्यूनसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन की इलेक्शन चल रही है, अभी उसका कंपेन चल रहा है, अभी आगे होने वाले इसके इलेक्शन, तो वहाँ पे ऐसा हो गया कंपेन कि जो प्रेजेंट पॉलिटिक्स है, उसका कहना था कि प्रेजेंट पॉलिटिक्स में ही या सांप्रदायिकता फैलाने का चल रहा है, या कास्टिज्म फैलाने का चल रहा है, या अनटचेबल के बारे में जो सोच है उसके बारे में वो फैलाना चल रहा है। वो ऐसा उसका कहना था कि एक हाथ में बाइबल ले रहा है और दूसरे हाथ में कुरान, कि आपको क्या चाहिए, क्या बाइबल चाहिए, क्या गीता चाहिए, ऐसा उसका वो कंपेन चल रहा है। तो जो पॉलिटिक्स में जो गंदी पॉलिटिक्स चल रही है, ये पॉलिटिक्स कब खत्म होगी? जब ऐसी पॉलिटिक्स खत्म नहीं होगी तब तक इंडिया या अपने देश में जो सांप्रदायिकता फैल रही है वो कम नहीं होगी।
जी रामदास जी, आपने बहुत सही बात कही है और मुझे लगता है कि लगातार सर भी इसी बात की ओर इंगित कर रहे हैं। तो सुखदेव थोराट सर हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं और मैं अब प्रोफेसर अविनाश कुमार सिंह सर का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ, आभार व्यक्त करना चाहती हूँ कि उन्होंने सोशल साइंस डिस्कोर्स में अंबेडकर को लोकेट करते हुए कैसे अंबेडकर ने क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग के जरिए सोशल इश्यूज को उठाया और किस तरह से उन्होंने अपने जो व्यूज हैं हमारे सामने रखा और हमारे लिए दिशा भी निर्धारित कर दी कि एज अ सोशल साइंटिस्ट आपको सिर्फ सामाजिक समस्याओं का अध्ययन ही नहीं करना है, बल्कि उनको दूर करने के उपाय भी आपको सुझाने हैं और उनको समाज को बदलने में अपनी भूमिका का निर्वाह भी करना है। सर आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने हमारे सामने एक आगे एज अ शिक्षक हम किस तरह से सोशल साइंस डिस्कोर्स में अपनी भूमिका निभा सकते हैं, समाज के बदलाव में अपनी भूमिका निभा सकते हैं, उस पर बहुत सुंदर तरीके से आपने हमें मार्ग दिखाया है। मैं HRDC डॉक्टर हरि सिंह गौर यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से, हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजिंग टीम की तरफ से आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया करती हूँ और आपका आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ। थैंक यू सो मच सर।
मेरी तरफ से भी सबको धन्यवाद और इसमें भाग लेने का अवसर देने के लिए हमें बहुत अच्छा लगा। इनफैक्ट मैं भी प्रोफेसर थोराट को सुनना चाहूँगा और इनफैक्ट इस पे इनका काम है, हम लोग इनको इनकी राइटिंग्स को फॉलो करते हैं। अम्बेडकर को इनफैक्ट समझने के लिए इनकी राइटिंग्स और इनमें जितने भी प्रयास अभी रिसर्च में हुए गए, इनका सेंटर जो इन्होंने यूसी में रहे इन्होंने जो एस्टैब्लिश किया डिफरेंट यूनिवर्सिटीज, उसका भी बहुत रोल रहा है इन चीज़ों को समझने में। इश्यूज ऑफ इक्वलिटी, इक्विटी एंड इंक्लूजन, ये सब सारे इश्यूज हैं जो कि अम्बेडकर की राइटिंग से फॉलो करते हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
शुक्रिया सर हमारे साथ बने रहने के लिए। और जैसा कि अभी हमारा जो सेकंड सेशन है उसको इस समय उसमें हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं प्रोफेसर सुखदेव थोराट सर, जो फॉर्मर चेयरपर्सन रहे हैं ICSSR के, UGC के, एक इकोनॉमिस्ट रहे हैं, अम्बेडकरवादी विचारधारा के बड़े विचारक रहे हैं, उन्होंने काफी कुछ काम किया है अपने इस क्षेत्र में। तो सर मैं आपका वेलकम करती हूँ, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है इस कार्यक्रम में। और ये जो वीक लॉन्ग शॉर्ट टर्म कोर्स है, इसमें हम लोगों ने डायलॉग विद अम्बेडकर के साथ एक संवाद की जो परंपरा है उसको शुरू करने की कोशिश की है कि अम्बेडकर के जो डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट्स हैं, जो उनके विभिन्न पहलू रहे हैं, सिर्फ एक दलित नेता के रूप में नहीं, एक संविधान निर्माता के रूप में ही नहीं, बल्कि एक अर्थशास्त्री के रूप में, एक सोशल रिफॉर्मर्स के रूप में, एक इकोनॉमिक्स के रूप में, एक ट्रेड यूनियनिस्ट के रूप में, जिस तरह से उन्होंने अपना रोल प्ले किया है वुमेन के राइट्स को लेकर, डाउन ट्रूडन पीपल के राइट्स को लेकर, उन सारे पहलुओं को हम उन पर विचार विमर्श करें, उन पर बातचीत करें और उनके बारे में जानने की और समझने की कोशिश करें। तो सर आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। इससे पहले कि मैं सर को आमंत्रित करूं उनके लेक्चर के लिए, हम लोग उनका एक संक्षिप्त परिचय जो है वो ऑडियंस के सामने रखना चाहते हैं। हमारे बीच सागर यूनिवर्सिटी के साइकोलॉजी विभाग में कार्यरत डॉक्टर संजय कुमार यहाँ मौजूद हैं, जो सर का संक्षिप्त परिचय आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करेंगे। तो मैं संजय कुमार जी को आमंत्रित करती हूँ कि वो प्रोफेसर थोराट के बारे में हमारे को बताएं।
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible? Dear participants, A warm morning to all of you. On behalf of the organizers of this course, Dr. Sanjay Sharma and Dr. Afreen Khan, I, Sanjay Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology of this university, welcomes you in a very important session to be graced by Professor Sukhdev Thorat. Professor Thorat is an alumni of Jawaharlal Nehru University who completed his MPhil and PhD in 1978 and 1986 respectively. In 1985, he completed a diploma in advanced course in national and economic planning from Warsaw and Poland. He is credited with addressing various pertinent issues in agricultural development, rural poverty, institution and economic growth, problems of marginalized groups, economics of caste system, caste discrimination and poverty, and human development, human rights issues, thoughts of Ambedkar, slums, and education. Professor Thorat has a vast teaching and research experience of more than 4.5 decades at the premium institutions like JNU, visiting faculty of Iowa State University, Ames, Iowa, USA. Keeping his academic and research excellence in mind, he has been awarded honorary D.Litt, DSc, DS, Doctor of Education, and LLD degrees by 12 universities from India and 1 university from abroad. He has published 19 books and about 100 research papers. Out of 100, 74 research papers eloquently addresses the problems of Dalits, tribals, minorities, and other groups. Professor Thorat has raised issues of Dalits, minorities, and other weaker sections of the country through his writings. Sir, you are here, and I must refer to one of your book titled Blocked by Caste, Economic Discrimination in Modern India, which had presented the real face of Indian business tycoons when they met with then Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, Ms. Meera Kumar, in 2005 to turn down the proposal of central government to grant reservation to Dalits and Adivasis in private sectors. In addition to teaching and research, Professor Thorat is also known for his administrative contribution as founding director, Indian Institute of Dalit Studies, chairman UGC and ICSSR, New Delhi, India. Acknowledging his immense academic and administrative contributions, Professor Thorat was awarded Padma Shri, which is the India's 4th highest civilian award, and Mother Teresa International Award. Sir, your ongoing efforts to draw the attention of policymakers and other sections of society on pertinent social problems in contemporary India rekindles hope in Dalits, Adivasis, and other weaker sections to envision a bright future in the days to come. Such efforts would uplift oppressed classes' self-esteem to express their concerns tenaciously to bring their selfhood and robbed dignity back. They will be galvanized to let the globe acknowledge that likewise Black lives in America, Dalits and Adivasi lives in India also matters. Your writings have succeeded in disseminating a message that Dalits and Adivasis lives are crippled by the manacle of segregation and the chains of discrimination even today, when our country is standing on the verge of celebrating 72 Republic Day in a few days. In view of your contribution, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Rath has been awarded to you by Delhi government for your dedication, extraordinary contribution to the works of thoughts of Ambedkar. Sir, we are sure that you are the most worthy academician in the contemporary India to expound the today's theme titled Dr. Ambedkar as Social Scientist, Approach, Methods, and Goal of Knowledge Creation. Without any further delay, I invite you, sir, for your deliberation. And I advise participants to feel free to raise your questions and queries without any barriers to the language. Thank you, sir. Over to you. Over to Thorat, sir.
Sir, please unmute your mic. You can unmute your mic, sir. So you can click on the mic icon of your screen. It's not working? यहाँ से नहीं होगा, वहीं से होगा। हाँ, वो खुद ही कर पाएगी। Yeah, sir, we can see you, but we can't hear you. You can unmute your mic, sir.
We are also checking our side, sir. Or please take your own time, sir. No need to worry about it. I think it's some technical error, sir. Please, sir.
माइक ऑटोमेटर जो है ना सिस्टम वो वहीं से
हाँ हो गया Okay, am I audible now? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, let me close this.
ये सर अब आपका अनम्यूट हो गया है, प्लीज सर अब आप बोल सकते हैं सर, प्लीज प्लीज। देखना सर को सुनाई पड़ेगा, आवाज आ रही है?
Okay, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
सर आपने ना
Is it audible?
दो फोन से लॉगिन किया हुआ है, दो सिस्टम से सर।
Hello?
सर आपने दो सिस्टम से लॉगिन किया हुआ है।
Hello?
अगर आप एक को साइन आउट कर देंगे।
Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible, but you have switched on the two systems, and that could make problem.
I have closed down my laptop. So
No, sir. Right now, perfect. Please, finish perfect, sir. Carry on, sir. Please carry on. Perfect, sir.
there is a echo. There is I have closed down my laptop first. So here there are. I have opened it twice.
Yes, twice, sir.
Yes, sir.
What do I do?
So one system, I think.
इको है ना इसमें, बहुत इको है।
सर
आपको ठीक से आवाज आ रही है?
सभी लोग अभी पार्टी
मैं दोबारा
सभी यस प्लीज सर, प्लीज आप बोलिए सर।
ओके, हाँ, देयर इज स्टिल एको, आई विल स्पीक। ओके,
इसमें इको हो रहा है, तो एक बार आप
एम आई ऑडिबल नाउ?
नहीं,
हेलो,
वेरी मच ऑडिबल, बट देयर इज इको।
हेलो,
योर वॉइस इज इकोइंग।
हेलो,
या हेलो,
एम आई ऑडिबल नाउ?
यस, यू आर ऑडिबल, बट योर वॉइस इज इकोइंग।
हेलो,
यस सर, यस, राइट, ऑल परफेक्ट।
ऑडिबल हूँ मैं, मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
बोलो ना भाई, मैं 2-3 बार पूछ रहा हूँ आपको. Okay, let us begin. Well, I said that I am. Thank you to Dr. Sanjay Kumar for introducing me with length. I also thank the organizer for inviting me to give a valedictory address on a very important topic that you have taken for a discussion, namely Dr. Ambedkar as a social scientist, approach, method, goal of knowledge creation. This is an extremely important topic, but this is a new topic on which I have not really studied in greater detail. You expect me to speak on the approach used by Dr. Ambedkar in social science research and creation of knowledge, the method that he used, and the goal that he has put before himself while creating the knowledge. It's a very important issue, but at the same time very exhaustive. Now, if one has to speak as to what approach Dr. Ambedkar followed in creation of knowledge, what method he has used in creation of knowledge through his writing, and what were the goals before him when he wrote through a very extensive research before him. Now, this would certainly require the study of the writing of Dr. Ambedkar. And this is an impossible task. This is a gigantic task. Because Dr. Ambedkar has written so exhaustively on all subjects. He has not left any subject as far as the social science is concerned. He has written on sociological issue, anthropological issue. He has written on politics, Indian politics, the democracy, the constitution, religion, creation of caste, theories of caste, philosophy. So he has hardly left any subject in his writing, although not one particular subject in great detail, but covering all the disciplines. Although most of his writing are all on the issue of social thought, especially the caste and untouchability, but also quite exhaustively he has expressed his view on political issues. Therefore, you know, if we want to study his approach, method, and goal, then somebody has to go through his entire literature, which the Maharashtra government has brought in almost 22 volumes. And this is the most difficult task. Taking a look at Dr. Ambedkar's literature, it means that somebody has to write an academic biography of Dr. Ambedkar. And that takes really a lot of time and a lot of energy. But since you have given me this topic and I have agreed to speak, I have given some thought to the way I should present, and I will share with you my thinking on this. Your subtitle is Dr. Ambedkar as a social scientist. Christopher Jefferson wrote a book on Ambedkar and untouchability. I hope you are familiar with that. And one function was held in India International Center to release that book. And Christopher Jefferson had asked me to chair that. So I chaired it. And Christopher Jefferson made a point based on the book that Dr. Ambedkar was an anthropologist, which means he was also a sociologist in his writing. There were two people present there, very, very eminent sociologists, to make comments on Christopher Jeffrey's book. One was Andy Bette, and another was Dipankar Gupta. Dipankar Gupta, in his remark, said that we cannot call Dr. Ambedkar an anthropologist. Dr. Andy Bette also supported Dipankar Gupta that we cannot, based on his writing, Ambedkar's writing, we cannot treat him as, consider him as an anthropologist. Now, this is the approach of the sociologist. If you don't consider him an anthropologist and sociologist, you would not like to teach him in the university. And that explains why Dr. Ambedkar doesn't figure much in the curriculum in the university and the colleges. While this is the opinion of two eminent sociologists, Dr. Surendra Singh Jotka, a couple of days before or week, delivering an Ambedkar Memorial Lecture on behalf of Indian Institute of Dalit Studies, argued that Dr. Ambedkar was indeed a sociologist and anthropologist. If we take his method, his writing and his method of analysis, then he was universal. He applied the social scientist methods and approaches to study the phenomena, and therefore he was a sociologist or an economist or an anthropologist or a political scientist or a constitutional theorist, because he has written on so many aspects, and also the religious writer. I think Surendra Singh Jotka was right and appropriate. And I don't think Dipankar Gupta and Andy Bette were correct in their understanding. In fact, what happened is, I was chairing, and after the function was over, I asked Andy Bette that, have you read the first paper of Dr. Ambedkar, which he wrote in 1916 in anthropology seminar in Columbia University, and develop a theory of caste? And Dr. Andy Bette said no. So that is the situation. You see the disregard and disinterest that is shown in the writing on Ambedkar. Now, I began to think over what Dr. Surendra Singh Jotka has discussed about the method and approaches, social science method and approaches that were used. So in a way, I am borrowing from his perspective, but I extend that perspective a little ahead and share my thinking about the approach, methods, and goal of knowledge creation that has been used by Dr. Ambedkar. But the first task is to take a survey of his writing, which is itself is a very, very gigantic task. But I will do that. For the last 20, 30 years, I have laid my hand on most of the writing of Dr. Ambedkar, not only economics, but writing on social issues and political issues, constitutional issues, religious issues, philosophical issues. So based on that, I will give you the survey of writing of Ambedkar, and within that, I will then come at the second part of my lecture, what strategies and approaches and methods that he used, what was his intention and the goal of knowledge creation. Let me first make this two statement before I go to his literature. Dr. Ambedkar used the scientific approach which was prevalent at that point of time in social sciences. He used the methods that were used in the social sciences. But beyond that, he also created his own methods and in analyzing the different issues. That is the first statement that I would like to make. And so that he was a scientist, social scientist to the core, insofar as he used the method and he dealt with the social science discourses. The second point, which is very important, is that he created the knowledge. He knew knowledge, in fact, on several issues on which he wrote. And the goal was, it's very important, The goal was to understand the truth of any phenomena. It may be caste, untouchability, democracy, whatever, Indian society, religion. To understand it, what it is, understand the truth, discover the truth. But at the same time, Dr. Ambedkar is quite separate from other academicians, is that he was motivated by a goal in creation of a knowledge, transform the society towards certain goals. That is very important. All his writing is oriented to action and the policies and the transformation of the society. And the goal is to create a society based on equality, fraternity, justice, and well-being of the people. That is very, very important. All his books, if you will see that he has picked up the issues, studied the issue, find out the causality, gave the solution. Solution giving is a very distinguished aspect of Dr. Ambedkar's writing. And solution is with the goal of creating something, creating a society for the well-being of the people. That you do not find generally in the social science. You know, in economics, we have a neutral economist and a positive economist. A neutral economist only describe the phenomena, the reality and the truth. But the positive economics is something which set the goals, values, and right for change in the society. So Dr. Ambedkar was not only a researcher, but he was an activist. In fact, I would say that not only that he suggested policy for transformation of the society, but he undertook action. He was a leader. He built a social movement. Actually participates in civil rights movement, anti-caste movement. So you can see that how different he is from the other social scientists, that the goal of creating a society, changing a society, were there simply because he was engaged in transforming society through an actual social action, through an actual social movement. So he was quite different from others, that he was a researcher to find out the truth. He also find out the causes of the problem, and he suggested the policies. This is an academic exercise, but he went beyond academic exercise, and he get himself involved in the actual transformation of the society through the social action, organizing social movement. You know, the burning of Vanasprati in Mahad, or entry into the temple of Nashik, entry into the temple of Parvati temple in Nagpur, and the Amba Devi temple in Amravati. These were all agitation in which he practiced. But before that, there was a research, there was a policy suggestion. So that is the briefly I will present to you. This will be I will provide an explanation and justification what I said. So let us begin with the two part of my presentation. First is just to take a very short and brief review of his writing, and then only we will be able to understand what method or approaches he has used. I begin with economic writings. Dr. Ambedkar wrote on economic issue, so he was an economist. He wrote on social issues, so he was a sociologist and anthropologist. He wrote on political issues, so he was a political scientist. He wrote on constitutions, so he was a constitutional theorist, and that he wrote on religion and philosophy. So he was a religious thinker or academician, and political, so religious philosopher also. And I will identify this writing of Dr. Ambedkar and his designation by picking up his writing. Let's begin with the economics. In economics, you know that he did his PhD from Columbia University and did his DSc from London School of Economics, and also his Barat Law from the Queen's College in London. These are his basic degrees. He was given 2 honorary degrees. One was by the Columbia University, another by Usmania University, LLD and DSc. So his original writings are economics. He brought out 2 books. His PhD book was Public Finance. Now, what did he do in that? In public finance, I will be very brief, otherwise I will exceed the time. Public finance is nothing but he examined the revenue, how the revenue was collected by the Britishers and how it was spent. So he examined the revenue and expenditure during the British period. In other words, he also looked into the taxation system and how expenditure was done by the Britishers, and he criticized Britishers that most of the expenditure was on defense and siphon off to US, and there was much less expenditure in India on the necessary well-being. So he was, in a way, he criticized the policies of the British. And there is a goal in that writing that where the expenditure should be there, how expenditure should be made, on what head the expenditure should be made, how the taxes should be considered. He favored the progressive taxation at that time. His supervisor Seligman was in favor of progressive taxation, and therefore you can see here the cause, the issues of siphoning of income taxes, with heavy income taxes and income to the UK, and less expenditure, also unproductive expenditure, not on education and health and other and infrastructure. On the exchange rate. He did it in London School of Economics under the supervision of Professor Cannon, very important, renowned economists. Now here the issue was what should be the exchange rate between rupee and the pound. That's all, nothing else. And the Britishers had fixed the exchange rate between rupee and the pound in a manner such that they benefit more than the British India. So he criticized for having an unfavorable exchange rate in favor of UK, British, and against India. Again, this was a criticism of imperialism in a way. He criticized Keynes at that very time. Keynes suggested certain standard to decide the exchange rate, but he favored a different ratio. I think it was 1:4, 1 pound equal to 4 rupees, and eventually that was the ratio which was accepted by the commission. So it was an issue of exchange rate, and again it was an issue of the country. He examined the causes, understand the phenomena, and suggest the solution. He appeared before the commission. These are his was built up later on by Arthur Lewis. Some of the economists may be knowing economic development with unlimited labor supply, and he got a Nobel Prize. He had a full book on that. But originally, the idea of surplus labor and taking out of surplus labor from agriculture to industry was Dr. Ambedkar. In 1946, 42, he became a minister in the British government, labor minister. So he also developed the principle of water. Development of water resources, power policy, and labor, and development of the scheduled castes. He suggested certain solutions. Now these are some of the basic writing of Dr. Ambedkar on economics. Then he stopped working on economics. He confessed in one of his reprint of the book on his PhD book, which he brought with a different title. He confessed that he stopped writing on economics and he switched over to sociology, law, constitution, and political science, because they were far more necessary and important for the upliftment of the untouchable, which he was occupied at that point of time. But you can see that the method that he applies, are 2-3 points very important. One, he used certainly he used hypothesis, laid down the hypothesis. He examined the situation with the existing theories of public finance, theories of exchange rate, and therefore he was an economist. Mainstream theoretical discourse he used in making his argument. The second important thing, that he was empiricist. He used the data quite extensively to make the argument. The hypothesis was supported by empirical data, and you can also see that he doesn't stop at analyzing, but he also makes solutions, give policies, and with a lot of passion he make policies. So he was driven by by the cause of the Indian cause. It was not an untouchable cause. It was the Indian cause that how the taxes should be imposed, how they should be spent, what should be the exchange rate, how economic development should be brought in India, how water resources and the electrical power resources should be developed. And he indeed developed. He was instrumental in developing Damodar Valley project, Hirakud project, Soul River projects. He was motivated and passionate by the economic development of these resources. So these are the methodological and approaches that we get from his economic writing. Let's come to sociology and anthropology. Writing in sociology and anthropology is very vast, very, very vast. But somehow I have laid my hand on most of the writing. I will only list them and then tell you what are the issues that you are engaged with, how did he study, what are the solutions he offered, and what he actually did. You know, the first paper, all of you know that when he was a student at Columbia University, he wrote a paper in 1916. He was, I think, hardly 22, 23 years old. He developed a theory of caste, how caste has come into being, how caste expanded, the growth, and what was the mechanism used in expansion of the caste. Now, I would not like to go into great detail because that will take my time. But the method that he followed here was that he entered into a social science knowledge, social science discourse. What are the theories of caste? At that time, there were 3-4 approaches: racial theory, occupation theory, and then the theory by Kane and others. He took a review of those theories and proposed his own theory. At that age, he proposed an alternative theory of caste. And also he touched upon a very complicated issue, how caste has grown. How do we find the caste in exactly similar manner from Kanyakumari to Srinagar and from Calcutta to Jaipur? In whichever direction you go of India, caste is similar with a lot of differences. How caste has expanded, this is a riddle, but he tried to solve that, and he gave the mechanism, how this has happened. How Brahmanism was responsible for, Brahman theories of social theories were responsible, and this practice for growth of caste system. Now here he used logic. He used imagination also. There is a role for imagination, Dr. Ambedkar's writing. Here the facts are not there, but what you have is only theory and certain concept. Then you can bridge the gaps in the knowledge by imagining also. So in his social science discourse, the imagination has a role to play. Then he wrote 2 books: Who Were Shudra, and how they became a fourth varna of the Indian society. Then he wrote another book, Who Were Untouchable, and how they became the fifth varna of the Indian caste system. These are his 2 outstanding books. Now these are academic books, rigorously academic book, that they were writing about who were the Shudras. And he took all those theories and then examined based on the massive literature, Hindu literature, which he has quoted in that book, and he gave a theory of who were Shudras. Some of them do not agree with Dr. Ambedkar. Vivekananda Jha, historian, or R.S. Sharma. R.S. Sharma's PhD was on Shudra in ancient India. So he differed with R.S. Sharma, he differed with Vivekananda Jha, and gave his own theory that Shudra were a part of Kshatriyas, and because that they were denied, there was a conflict between the Brahmanical thought and the thought that Shudra king supported, and therefore they were denied the Upanayana Sanskar, and they were reduced to fourth varna. I am not going into that, but the point is that you have to understand that Dr. Ambedkar was a social scientist, sociologist, where he took all the theories of who were Shudra and gave his own alternative theory. Similarly, he did about untouchability. However, he rejected all other theories of creation of untouchability and built up his own theory based on the literature, ancient literature. He laid down the dates for origin of the untouchability. Now, the approach that he developed here was a social science approach. That you have a hypothesis, you have hunch, then you provide evidence, then you draw a conclusion, and propose your own view. So you can see that he used that method in this book. There are other huge writing on sociological writing. I would not like to go into this. In Riddle of Hinduism, there is one section, Riddle of Hinduism, social aspect. So he has examined the social aspect. In fact, there are many riddles, but one of the important riddles that some of the sociologists, if they are sitting here, I will tell them that he studied all the Hindu literature, all Vedas, all Smritis, Puranas, and Brahmanas, and all that, and see what is their position on caste. Not only Manusmriti, but all the entire literature of the Brahmanical theory, Brahmanical literature as such. So the approach that he follows is a historical, analytical, and sociologists and the scientists that follow that it review the existing theory, the existing views, and then give his own. So I will then switch over to political science. In political science, his literature is again very massive literature. There is a difficult, it's difficult to sort of draw a distinction between constitutional theory and the political science issues, but I have tried to sort of classify them for you. Dr. Ambedkar's political writings begin in 1980. You are possibly familiar that the India was governed by the Government of India Act, British Government of India Act. But after every 10 years, the British government would send a team to bring the reform in the Government of India Act and to seek the opinion of the India. So when Dr. Ambedkar appeared on the scene in 1918, he was a lecturer at Sydenham College. The South Bureau Committee came, and he submitted a memorandum to the South Bureau Committee in 1919. Then after 10 years, Simon Commission came. He submitted another memorandum before the Simon Commission. And then flowing from the Simon Commission were the roundtable conferences, Roundtable Conference 1, 2, and 3, which led to the establishment of the 1935 Act. Now, Dr. Ambedkar submitted a memorandum in 1990, 1929, and of course in the roundtable conferences. Now that covers so many political issues. It covers the elections, whether the representative in the central legislature in India, provincial legislation should be by nomination or by election. He supported election. When the voting right was confined to a limited section of the society, he favored adult suffrage, that every adult should have voting right. So there are several political issues that he expressed his view. In the Roundtable Conference, he played a very important role in framing the 1935 Act, which was a very exhaustive, it was a constitution, very exhaustive constitution, longest constitution ever produced, as a matter of fact. So he was a member of the Minority Committee, he was a member of the Federal Committee, so he has expressed his view on federalism. So the major issues that he, of course, was preoccupied was also the representation of the scheduled castes, and therefore method of representation, joint electorate or separate electorate, and other method that he suggested. He also citizenship right, not citizenship right. So he talked of citizenship right, civil right defined in his own way. The minorities were given political reservation, Muslim, Christian, Anglo-Indian, but untouchable were not. So one of the most important contribution of Dr. Ambedkar is definition of minorities. How does one define minorities? Do we define only because based on the population? And he differed. He said population should not be is not necessarily, it is one of the bases, but it's not necessarily the only basis for recognized minority. He laid down a condition that if a community suffered discrimination and remained deprived, that community should be recognized as a minority. And scheduled caste was a minority. That is how we proved scheduled caste was a minority, and scheduled caste then got a reservation later on. So this is there is a lot of contribution on several issues here. Defined minority, method of representation, federalism, fundamental rights, civic rights, citizenship right. And later on then, he wrote a book also. The book on politics is, of course, how we deal the minority in the in democracy. So he wrote a book, Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve It, and gave a solution to the question of communalism in India. In fact, the fear that he expressed in that have come true now. Taking over of democracy by a particular religion or by a particular caste, that was his fear, which is coming true now. But he studied the problem of communalism and minorities and democracy. Democracy is one of the very important themes that Dr. Ambedkar has worked with. In fact, he gave his own definition by studying the definition of some British thinker. One British thinker says that democracy is nothing but governance through discussion. Abraham Lincoln said it is by the people, for the people, and of the people. Dr. Ambedkar said that bringing a revolutionary changes, socio-economic changes through democratic method, through non-violent method is a democracy. But he also laid down the condition for successful working of the democracy. That is you should have social democracy and economic democracy. Without that, the democracy will not function properly. But the most important danger that he expressed was that in India, where there is several religion and it is a diversified society, caste, ethnicity, here the democracy will be difficult to survive. If we don't, we will have to have a political democracy. But if we have a communal democracy based on religion, caste, and ethnicity, the democracy will land into a trouble, and minority will be at the risk. This was precisely has happened. In fact, his many predictions have come true. This was one of it. But he also wrote on several contemporary issues which are related to politics. He gave a lecture on federalism. He gave a lecture on Rande, Gandhi, and Jinnah in Gokhale Institute. There he developed the concept of who is a great man, defined the great man. Then he wrote on state reorganization. When the State Reorganization Commission came with the reorganization based on one language, one state, he brought out his own book, Thoughts on Linguistic State, and opposed and gave a recommendation which was different from the State Reorganization Commission. He was in favor of many states of the same language, and that is what we are now precisely doing. UP is a Hindi-speaking state, but we are having 2-3 states now. Maharashtra, he proposed 3. Andhra Pradesh, he proposed 3. Telangana was proposed by him. That is how Telangana is created. So, state reorganization. But above all, he also, one of the most important engagement of Dr. Ambedkar was the solution and remedies from the problem of untouchable or a scheduled caste. And he gave those remedies and suggestions in state and minorities. The remedies against economic exploitation, remedies against social discrimination. I do not want to go into that, but I have given you some outline of what is his political writing. Now you can see that the distinguished feature of this writing is that he's picking up the issue. He doesn't write without the issue. He addressed the problem, analyzed the problem, and gave a solution, alternative solution to deal with the problem on several of these political issues. The method of representation, question of minority, representation through nomination or election, democracy, federalism. These were the issues that were dealt at that point of time. He studied them academically, drawing from the theories from political science, developing his own theoretical approach, gave the solution, and those solutions were some of the solutions were used by the government. In fact, we give credit of uniting the state to Sardar Patel. Yes, the credit should be given. At a political level, the role of Patel is very important. But who gave the theory? It was Dr. Ambedkar. You know, the British, when they hand over the power to British India, they say that it should be left to the princess whether to join India or not. This was British position at that time. Dr. Ambedkar, as a constitutional expert, told them that now that you have given the power to the India to frame their constitution, it is the power of the Indian government, not the British government, And it is the Indian Constitution which will decide whether the priestly slate will remain separate or they will be part of India. Even United Nations do not have a jurisdiction over it. This legal argument, which is given in volume 12, you must read, the political scientist, you must read. He sent a letter to Patel that this is the legal justification for uniting the state and not giving liberty to the princely states to form a separate state. That was the basis on which Patel took initiative. But the credit is given to Sardar Patel. Ambedkar is not recognized. That is the neglect of Dr. Ambedkar, as a matter of fact. He gave a theory as a matter of fact. And when finally two states did not agree, the Hyderabad and Portuguese Goa, then government has to take action, military action. Again, Dr. Ambedkar suggested to Patel that don't call it a military action, because then it will be conceived as a aggression against the country, state, and they can go to UN. Call it a police action. So it was Dr. Ambedkar's suggestion was police action. So you can imagine how Dr. Ambedkar was involved in policies and solutions that relate to the country, as a matter of fact. So this is how his method were used. Let me go to religion and the philosophy now. Now on religion also, Dr. Ambedkar has written quite substantially. The first important book is, of course, द-8. It's a beautiful book. It is a musical book in a way. It's written in a simple language, but it's a comparison of Brahmanism, Vaidism, and Buddhism, and other Jainism and others. So then there is in volume 3 the philosophy of Hinduism. Then in Riddle there are essays on religion. Then he wrote an article, Rise and Fall of Buddhism. He wrote an article, Rise and Fall of Woman. And then there is a whole lot sort of literature on other literature on the religion. He took an entire review of the literature of Brahmanic literature, he called it, in volume 3. So now here you will see that he not only reviewed the Hinduism and Buddhism, but Buddhism is sort of properly interpreted, which is contained for transformation of the society to equality and freedom. And he analyzed the Hinduism, and therefore in that analysis he Rise and Fall of Buddhism, Rise and Fall of Hindu woman, the analysis and how they were responsible for it. He gave a lecture, Buddha and Karl Marx, compare Buddhism with the Karl Marx. So you can see that his writings for Hinduism and Buddhism and religions are very, very important, and he followed the same method. He referred to the major discourses, academic discourses in religious and philosophy, and method is same. There is other area which is very important, and that is history, social history. He interpreted the Vedic society, the features of the caste system, unique and an essential feature, but the analysis of the Vedic society, the degradation and downfall of the Vedic society, you will find in volume 3. But over and above that, he gave the theory of history, how to interpret the Indian history. He gave a theory, what is called revolution and counter-revolution. The revolution was Buddhism and counter-revolution was Brahmanism. He said, unless you look at the Indian history as a revolution and counter-revolution, you cannot understand many of the issues of Indian history. So here is writing on Indian history. And finally, I will end by saying that his final writing, as you have rightly suggested in our earlier discussion, his entire writings are motivated for a social change and social transformation, to build up a society based on equality, freedom, fraternity, brotherhood, which is not, because our society is based on inequality, hatred. And therefore, he wanted this change. And there's a lot of literature that in the form of books, which he has written. Now, obviously, annihilation of caste is very important. How to analyze the caste? He examined the caste, root of the caste, feature of the caste, which he dealt in at other places, but in analysis he brought the major conclusion and gave the solution. How to annihilate the caste? Reform of Hindu social order. then converted to Buddhism, was an attempt to bring a social change in Indian society based on the principle of equality and freedom against the principle of inequality and non-freedom in caste system, Hindu social organization. His lecture at Yeola, which way salvation is in English if I translate. So you can see that he was engaged with the social change. Now I have forgotten one aspect, and I will say, and I will stop here, and I will go to the other issue: Constitution. His views on constitutions are original. He contributed to the constitutional jurisprudence theory, which need to be recognized. Now, he hasn't written any book. The only book that is available to us is the State and Minorities. And then, of course, his all deliberation in the Constitutional Assembly, his all deliberation and interference in the intervention in the roundtable conferences on the constitutional issue. If you put that together, then you can see Ambedkar as a jurist, constitutional theorist, as a matter of fact. And he draw again in interpreting and giving solution from the mainstream constitutional theoretical literature. He discussed the concept of fundamental right, how to secure them, how to secure fundamental right. He differed with the British parliamentary type of democracy and system. He said that British parliamentary, the constitutional jurisprudence and theory is that when you frame a constitution, you define only the political structure, the fundamental right and the form of the government, executive, judiciary, and other, nothing more than that. But he said no, the constitution should also define economic structure. Suggested constitutional state socialism, time of constitution making, but the Fundamental Right Committee member did not accept that. Traditional theory is that you define political structure, not the economic structure. Economic structure should be left to the legislature as and when they want. Nationalization of land, nationalization of bank, or privatization of public undertaking, which is being done by the legislature now. But he wanted that to be a part of the constitution, unamendable by the legislature. So there are many thoughts of his on constitution, the concept of democracy, underlying condition of success for democracy, the concept of constitution, what should be the what structure we should define, political, economic, and social. Now that also he draw from the discourse. One of the features of Dr. Ambedkar is that all his writing, he referred to the Western literature. That was the literature which are available. But he also referred sometimes in the literature that is developed in Eastern, in Asia. But basically, he draw from the Western literature on politics, on economics, on sociology, on anthropology, on religion, and sometimes accept it, sometimes criticizes and make modifications. So he's an innovator, as a matter of fact. Now, this is the literature of Dr. Ambedkar. I don't think I claim that I have covered, but I have almost covered all his basic writing, if not his all writing, basic writing. Now, if after having gone through his basic writing, then we can now give some thought as to what is the approach, methods, and goals that he has followed. I'll take another 15 minutes and then leave the others for a discussion. I think he followed the modern method, modern approach and method to study the truth. The objective of the social science is to find out the truth. Either through theories, you give a theory, or through empirical facts, undertaking studies, generating data, and also using some theory and empirical facts. The purpose is to find out the truth. All social sciences are engaged into that truth. Sciences also. We had a COVID-19 within a 6 to 7 months through an extensive research in that area. They developed the vaccine. Vaccine is nothing but find out the truth, a solution to the problem of virus. So science as well as social science find out the truth. I think Dr. Ambedkar was a truth seeker. He undertook research to find out the truth. And therefore, all social scientists who find out the truth began the research with hypothesis. That what is the likely relationship? What is the likely facts? You have to begin with imagination. You have to begin with hypothesis. And he did that. In all his writing, you see that he placed the hypothesis, that this is what he thinks this is likely to be, and then goes on examining it with the empirical facts. Then the other method that is followed by the social scientist is to verify the hypothesis or to study the actual situation based on the evidence. You collect the facts. If it is historical research, you collect the fact from the history. If you are an economist, you collect the data from going to the field. If you are a sociologist, you also collect the data of sociological aspect, and then try to see what is the truth. You cannot study the entire society, so you take sample. Therefore, sample technique is coming. Statistical technique is coming. Dr. Ambedkar used that. If you look at Dr. Ambedkar courses in Columbia University, he did I think more than 100 courses. There are 2 courses on statistical method. That is why in many of his writing, you look at what Congress and Gandhi have done. I didn't mention that book, Congress Gandhi have done to Untouchable. There is also discussion of Gandhism. The best discussion of Gandhian thought is in that book. People do not read that. There are several tables you will find, or many other books. He used the statistical data because he was acquainted with the statistical technique to handle the data because he did that courses. Then he used logic and reasoning. The use of logic and reasoning is a key thing. In mathematics, you follow one step and next step. The second step emerges from the first step. You follow a sequencing by equation. Similarly, we follow here in social science. We have a logic which is based on the justification, reasoning, and you find that Dr. Ambedkar used logic and reasoning. He didn't use speculation. Entire literature of our is on speculation and belief. This is what written in Veda, and that is true. This is what's written in here, Smriti, that is true. No, there is no. If you ask the logic, there is no logic. It is truth simply because it came from the divine origin. But Dr. Ambedkar did not follow the truth. Dr. Ambedkar followed in search of truth, logic and reasoning, empirical facts. Imagination comes into play, of course. Whenever there is a gap in the science, gap in the evidence, then you have to imagine that this must have happened, and you at least experiment. These are the steps which are used in the social scientist course, which Dr. Ambedkar used. There is one very unique feature of his is that in all his writing, he followed a historical approach. Whenever there is an issue, he go back to the origin, take a survey, and then take a stock that what is the position, and then begin his discourse. That's a very important feature of Dr. Ambedkar, because I think the historical approach he learned when he wrote his PhD thesis, which referred to the British India, or exchange rate, which referred to the British India. He followed a historical approach. But that historical approach he brought in sociology also. In 1960 paper, when he gave a theory of caste, he removed all the theories right from the beginning. So that is an important aspect of his evidence. Now, I will come on the last 2 aspects which are unique to Ambedkar, which are not to be found in many cases. You should read who were untouchable and who were Shudras, and then you will find that. Dr. Ambedkar was a lawyer. And what do the lawyer do? When lawyers go to the court, they have to take both the sides. They have to take the view explained by one lawyer, take those views, criticize them, and give an alternative view. That was our Dr. Ambedkar's training also. Now, therefore, in his academic, he brought that approach. The legal approach, legal method used, he brought in the academic. That after having laid down the theory, who were Shudras or who were untouchable, he identify, he go a step ahead and argue that these are the areas where my critics will criticize me. He explored the possibility where the critics will criticize, because I have given a new view. This new view may not be accepted And so there might be objection here. So what happened that he gave an explanation to this imaginative objection also. The possible criticism, he gave the reply very in advance. That's a very interesting part of Dr. Ambedkar's method that has been used, that the possible criticism of theory, he take into account and provide reply to that, so that he make his argument foolproof. And also, he's not very stubborn. He said that if you provide an alternative to my view with the facts, I am prepared to accept, but not until that time. So this is a very innovative aspect of method that Dr. Ambedkar has used in his research. And last point, of course, he was a positive scientist. Positive scientist in the sense that he wanted a change. He is not a neutral scientist that explain the phenomena and leave it there. No. In fact, his writing is focused on problems, analysis of the problem, nature of the problem, causes of the problem, solution, and even action. So he was positive in the sense that he gave solution and fight also for solution because he was activist. So I think these are some of the thought and reflection that I had, because you give me altogether new topic, and I got some idea from Dr. Jyotka. He opened up that issue as a matter of fact. Ambedkar is a social scientist, but this is an area somebody should work in greater detail. And Dr. Ambedkar is indeed a social scientist, whether you take his economic literature, sociological, anthropological literature, political science, religion and philosophy, constitution and jurisprudence, he was a scientist. He was deep into the current literature of social sciences. He did not give an independent writing without referring to the literature. No, he was a part of it. And he used the method of social scientists. Therefore, he must be called economist, sociologist, anthropologist, political scientist, constitutional expert, jurisprudence, and religious philosopher. Fred, I will stop it here. Thank you. Let's go for an answer question. You are not visible to me. Yes, now, yeah, now. No, your voice is not audible. There is a problem.
मैम एक बार रिजॉइन होना पड़ेगा आपको।
हाँ, आपकी तो आ रही है, अफरीन खान की आ रही है, लेकिन अब आ रही है।
Now the session is open for question and answer, and your questions are invited. You can write in the chat box, and sir would address those concerned queries. So please ask your questions. Even you can write in the chat box.
I don't have a chat box here, I think. Better ask.
Please, if you allow me, then I can.
Go ahead.
Please, sir. Hello. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead, Sanjay Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It's a really nice session, or no doubt, it's a really reflective session also. सर मेरी चिंताएं थी सर जो आपके एड्रेस से भी थोड़ी मजबूत होती हैं, और क्योंकि मैंने जो इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ दलित स्टडीज के कई सारे जो पब्लिकेशन से मैं उनके साथ जुड़ा रहा हूं, मतलब मैंने उनको पढ़ा है और इनफैक्ट मैंने अपने काम में भी उनको इस्तेमाल किया है। सर दो चिंताएं जो मैं आपके साथ साझा करना चाहता हूं वो ये कि स्टेट की जो एपरेटस हैं वो अगर हमारे जो अफर्मेटिव एक्शंस हैं उनको डीमीनिंग करने की प्रक्रिया की तरफ बढ़ रहे होते हैं। जब स्टेट एपरेटस उससे काम कर रहा होता है कि वो अफर्मेटिव जो एक्शंस हैं उनके ही अपने फ्रेम को डाइल्यूट करता है, और उसको हमने दो जगह देखा है। एक तो ये कि जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर में जब हम उसकी बात करते हैं, एक तरह से रिजर्वेशन की बात करते हैं, तब भी वहां पर कोई पॉलिसी काम नहीं कर रही होती है। और दूसरी सर वो कि स्टेट की अपनी पॉलिसी खुद इस तरह की बनती है कि अगर वो बहुत परवेसिव बना देती है अफर्मेटिव एक्शंस को, तो उस सेंस में जो पूरा फ्रेम है जो सोशल मोबिलिटी और सोशल चेंज की तरफ जाता है वो किस तरह से प्रभावित होता है सर, और एक सोशल साइंटिस्ट को उसे कैसे देखने की जरूरत है सर। एक तो ये, दूसरा जो एक एक्सक्लूजन की फ्रेम पे मुझे लगता है IIDS ने बहुत काम किया और आपने तो सर उस पर काफी लिखा भी है, वो ये कि हमारे पास जो अनटचेबिलिटी के जो हमारे पास कन्वेंशनल तरीके थे वो बदल गए हैं। अब अनटचेबिलिटी उस तरह से नहीं प्रैक्टिसाइज होती है कि पानी नहीं पीने दिया जा रहा है, साथ में नहीं बैठने दिया जा रहा है, बल्कि अब अनटचेबिलिटी के जो फॉर्म है वो हमें जॉब के फॉर्म में या क्लासिफाइड जो हम ये देखते हैं इस तरह के विज्ञापन उसमें भी दिखाई पड़ते हैं। उसमें आपने काफी काम किया है सर। तो क्या ये रूप का ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन होगा या कभी इस तरह की चीजों के साथ ये बदलेगी सर, या सिर्फ इसका रंग बदलता जाएगा, प्रतिरूप बदलते जाएंगे एक्सक्लूजन के साथ? जी सर प्लीज सर।
ओके, ये देखो, पहला जो सवाल है कि जो रिजर्वेशन पॉलिसी है उसको उसका जो विरोध किया जाता है, उसको डिस्टोर्ट किया जाता है, ये आपने कहा है। ये तो बात अपनी जगह सही है। उसमें मैंने मेरा एक EPW में आर्टिकल है 2016 का, आपने पढ़ाया नहीं, उसमें जितने भी आर्गुमेंट है रिजर्वेशन के खिलाफ उसको मैंने डील किया और उसका वो ये प्रूव किया कि उसको कोई फैक्चुअल बेस नहीं है। तो सारे मिथ क्रिएट किए गए कि भाई रिजर्वेशन पॉलिसी जो है गरीबों को बेनिफिट नहीं होती, एक छोटा सा तबका लेता है। तो उसमें मैंने प्रूव किया कि हाउ रिजर्वेशन पॉलिसी इज प्रो पुअर एंड इट इज यूज्ड बाय द पुअर। फिर ये है कि यदि क्रीमिलेरी है शेड्यूल कास्ट में तो वो उसको रिजर्वेशन लेता है, तो फिर रिजर्वेशन की क्या जरूरत है, इकोनॉमिक क्राइटेरिया लगाए। वो इकोनॉमिक क्राइटेरिया को मैंने उसकी लिमिटेशन बताई और तमाम सारे आर्गुमेंट को मैंने डिनाई किया। तो ये तो रिजर्वेशन ये सोसाइटी से आता है, एकेडमिक कम्युनिटी से आता है। एकेडमिक कम्युनिटी लिखती है और फिर पॉलिटिकल लीडर पिकअप करते हैं। कोई उसका कारण भी दिया मैंने। उसका कारण ये है, सीधा सा बात है, उसका कारण है अपना इंटरेस्ट, मटेरियल इंटरेस्ट, कि जो सदियों से फॉर थाउजेंड्स ऑफ ईयर एजुकेशन, एम्प्लॉयमेंट, लैंड, बिजनेस हैज बीन कन्फाइंड टू पर्टिकुलर कास्ट, 1 or 2 कास्ट। अब जो है, अब इक्वलिटी, अब इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी, इक्वल राइट दिए तो शेड्यूल कास्ट, शेड्यूल ट्राइब, ओबीसी को शेयर मिल रहा है। रिजर्वेशन एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट है, तो वो शेयर मिल रहा है, इसलिए हमारा शेयर घट रहा है। तो आप आर्गुमेंट कुछ भी दे दीजिए, लेकिन बेसिक मोटिव जो है वो ये है, मटेरियल बेनिफिट हमारा चाह रहा है, इसलिए उसका विरोध है, ये समझ लेना चाहिए। दूसरा आपने कहा जो सोशल एक्सक्लूजन वाला इशू, वो मुझे समझ में नहीं आया कि आपने ये कहा है शायद कि भाई सोशल एक्सक्लूजन डिफरेंट फॉर्म में रहता है, तो वो बिल्कुल सही है। ये मान के चलना कि सोशल डिस्क्रिमिनेशन सिर्फ सोशल स्फीयर में है, इट्स ओनली कन्फाइंड टू सोशल स्फीयर, सोशल रिलेशन, दैट इज अनट्रू। डिस्क्रिमिनेशन इज एवरीवेयर. Everywhere. It is in economic sphere. I have brought it through my extensive literature. It is in politics. It is in society. It is in education institution. It is in government, non-government institution. We have brought studies discrimination in midday meal, Anganwadi. So discrimination covers every aspect of our life. The only thing that we don't study, only we confine, because untouchability is very rampant in social relation. Pollution and purity, therefore we study that, but I think discrimination has to be studied everywhere. ये देख लीजिएगा, मुझे 15 मिनट का टाइम है, मुझे और कहीं जाना होगा, तो ब्रीफ सवाल पूछिए, मैं जवाब दूंगा।
सर मेरा एक रिजर्वेशन के बारे में सवाल है। ये सवाल सही है क्या झूठ है मुझे पता नहीं, लेकिन समाज में चर्चा तो चलती है कि रिजर्वेशन लाभ ले रही है, उनको छोड़ना चाहिए, और जो उनके भाई गांव में रहते हैं उनको अभी तक भी रिजर्वेशन का लाभ नहीं मिला, तो उनको मिलना चाहिए। ये चर्चा है समाज में, तो इसके बारे में आप क्या राय रखते हैं?
ओके, ये तो मतलब रिजर्वेशन शुरू हो गया 1950 में, पॉलिटिकल रिजर्वेशन शुरू हुआ वो 1932 में। जॉब और एजुकेशन जो है वो 1950 के बाद शुरू हो गया। तो एक 60 साल का इतिहास है। लेकिन जो रिजर्वेशन विच इज एंजॉयड बाय द हाई कास्ट ब्राह्मण particularly and higher caste like Kshatriya and Vaishya, it was for 2005 year. मनुस्मृति जो लिखी गई वो 200 BC में लिखी, सब एग्री करते हैं कि अराउंड 200 BC में लिखी। जो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन के खिलाफ लॉ ब्रिटिश ने लाया है वो लगभग मेरा ख्याल है 1850 तक लाया है। उसका इफेक्टिव थोड़ा सा इम्प्लीमेंटेशन 1910 के नजदीक हुआ। तो 200 BC से लेके यदि 1901 तक 10 तक देखे तो आप 2000 से ज्यादा रिजर्वेशन तो हाई कास्ट को था कि एजुकेशन सिर्फ ब्राह्मण को रहेगा, ठीक है ना, मिलिट्री सिर्फ क्षत्रिय को रहेगी, अनटचेबल को नहीं होगी, ट्रेड जो है सिर्फ वैश्य को रहेगा, और बाद में फिर शूद्र जो है उनको लैंड ओनरशिप का अधिकार देंगे। उसके बारे में आप क्यों नहीं बोलते हो दर्शन विषय?
सर मेरा सवाल थोड़ा सा अलग है।
आपका सवाल का जवाब दूं, आपको कॉन्टेक्स्ट समझना है। जब 60 साल का रिजर्वेशन शेड्यूल कास्ट को मिलता है तो उसकी क्रिटिसिज्म सवाल रेज किए जाते हैं, और ये 2000-2500 साल का रिजर्वेशन पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी में है, इमेजिनरी नहीं है। एजुकेशन का राइट जो है 200 BC से लेके 1856 तक, 1856 में धारवाड़ के एक दलित स्टूडेंट ने स्कूल में एडमिशन लेने की कोशिश की तो उसको एडमिशन नहीं दी, और ब्रिटिश ने यह माना कि हम नहीं दे सकते क्योंकि इससे बलवा हो जाएगा, स्कूल फ्री होगी। एजुकेशन राइट आपने किसको दिया है? ब्राह्मण को दिया है। उसके बारे में बोलिए आप, वो तो 2-2500 साल तक है, वो कैसे चला? अच्छा, लेट मी कम टू योर क्वेश्चन। ये बैकग्राउंड आपको समझना बहुत जरूरी है। ये आप जो कह रहे हो कि रिजर्वेशन का फायदा जो इलीट सेक्शन ले रहा है शेड्यूल कास्ट का, वो गरीबों को मिलना चाहिए, ये गलत है। मेरा आर्टिकल पढ़िए 2016 का ईपीडब्ल्यू में, आप ले लीजिए पोस्ट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ABCD, what is the proportion of total, if you take the total job and the reservation of scheduled caste, almost 65% are C and D, clerk and chaprasi. Only 30-35% is B and A, जो क्लास 1 ऑफिसर को देख रहे हैं। उसमें भी मैंने स्टडी की है कि कौन है क्लास 1 ऑफिसर, क्लास 2 ऑफिसर, उनका इकोनॉमिक बैकग्राउंड क्या है। तो उनका एक बैकग्राउंड निकल आता है कि वो मार्जिनल फार्मर है, लैंडलेस लेबर है। क्योंकि स्कॉलरशिप गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया देती है शेड्यूल कास्ट को, तो गरीब भी पढ़ता है। तो रिजर्वेशन का फायदा गरीबों को हुआ है, ठीक है ना, नंबर 1। तो ये गलत है कि वो रिलेटिवली बेटर ऑफ को ज्यादा हुआ और गरीबों को कम हुआ। तो पहली बात तो ये करनी चाहिए। दूसरी बात ये है, रिजर्वेशन क्यों दिया जाता है? आप कह रहे हैं कि उसको इकोनॉमिक बेस क्यों न लगाया, गरीबों को क्यों न दिया जाए? पहले गरीबों को देना चाहिए, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, जो शेड्यूल कास्ट के गरीब है। लेकिन रिजर्वेशन का आधार क्या है? रिजर्वेशन का आधार गरीबी नहीं है ना, रिजर्वेशन का आधार तो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। गरीब जो हाई कास्ट के गरीब है उनके लिए प्रो पुअर पॉलिसीज है, बहुत सारी पॉलिसीज है। स्कॉलरशिप दे दो, लैंड दे दो। गरीबी हटाने की जो पॉलिसीज है वो अपनी जगह है। शेड्यूल कास्ट को गरीबी हटाने की पॉलिसी चाहिए, लेकिन उसके अलावा एडिशनल पॉलिसी चाहिए, क्योंकि आपने उसको यदि ये दे भी दिया तो वो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की वजह से एंजॉय नहीं कर सकता। टेक ए केस, you get education, high caste get education, scheduled caste get education, both are BA, वो तो सबको वो दोनों को फैसिलिटी होनी चाहिए, गरीब है तो। But both enter into the job market. What happened? The high caste Brahmin will get preference from the people of his own caste. But scheduled caste when he enter, he will face discrimination. So scheduled caste को आपको ये पॉलिसी चाहिए जिससे उसको इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी मिले ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ हिज मेरिट। तो ये जो सप्लीमेंट्री पॉलिसी शेड्यूल कास्ट को चाहिए, उसको हाई कास्ट को जरूरी नहीं है। अब ये आर्गुमेंट है। अब डिस्क्रिमिनेशन जो है, जो सोसाइटी करती है, वो ये नहीं देखती कि शेड्यूल कास्ट फर्स्ट क्लास ऑफिसर है कि थर्ड क्लास ऑफिसर है, क्लार्क है। वो तो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन दोनों का होता है। और कोई सवाल है?
यस सर, हेलो
हेलो, बोलिए।
am I audible to you, sir?
Yeah, बोलिए।
Respected sir.
Yeah.
What are the things that of women in Indian democracy?
Very important question. That we have a constitution which recognizes equality before law, equal opportunity of law. And yet in the practice, or equal citizenship right, but yet in practice you have a untouchability which involves denial of equal access to public amenities, and there are other discrimination. The reason is that the caste system, which believe in economic inequality and denial of equal right to untouchable and even to women in different way, in some sphere to OBC, that is a part of the caste system. And a caste system is a part of religion, Hindu religion. Now the Hindus continue to believe in Hindu religious principle, not only religious principle, but also social principle of Hindu religion, and that is the caste. You go and ask a person, illiterate person of high caste, why do you follow caste system? He will say, sir, this is our tradition, this is our faith, and therefore we'll follow. I remember I have a lot many video in IRDS where we interview a priest, and he say, how can we allow our untouchable to enter into the temple? Because by our religion it is not possible. So if in USA slavery has disappeared after law, because slavery did not have religious foundation, untouchability continue and subsists because it has a religious foundation. And when you believe religion, then it's a matter of faith. You cannot argue reason, logic, काम नहीं चलती वहाँ पे. So Hindu religious faith is the reason as to why untouchability still persists. And another reason is that Hindus do not take initiative to break the caste, to stop the untouchability. They should take an initiative. They have to change, not the scheduled caste. It is only the scheduled caste who fight against caste, but not the high caste. Some of them are there. Sane Guruji and many, I am not saying that, but bulk of the Hindus, they continue to believe and they do not fight. They will fight through the NGO or other issue, but not on caste. Anyway, any other question? और कोई सवाल नहीं होगा तो संजय शर्मा अपना सवाल पूछ ले, फिर उसके बाद मैं फिर चलता हूं.
सर सवाल नहीं था, मैं बस आगे की बात पर थोड़ा सा आगे बात कर रहा था. वो ये कि
सवाल पूछो, कमेंट मत दे, कमेंट आप बाद में डिस्कस कर सकते हैं.
अच्छा ठीक.
सर जिस तरह
हेलो हेलो कोई महिला है जो जिसकी आवाज आ रही थी? Okay, thank you. If there is no question, then we close down.
मैम आपका ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा है.
ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा है?
नहीं सर, आपका नहीं, मैम का, आफरीन मैम का ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा है.
Thank you, sir. I am audible to you, sir?
Yeah, you are.
Now I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks for this session. Sir, this extraordinary deliberation where you presented a detailed review on the works and thoughts of Dr. Ambedkar. It was the most eloquent way to expound the today's theme entitled Dr. Ambedkar as Social Scientist, Approach, Method, and Goal of Knowledge Creation. It was detailed and insightful deliberation. Sir, you candidly stated that Dr. Ambedkar used logic and imagination to bridge the knowledge. He was not only addressed, analyzed, but also gave solution to various social problems of the contemporary society. Sir, we are sure that such insightful deliberation would enable present day's academician to nurture bourgeoic ideas, to rekindle hope in Dalits, Adivasis, and other weaker sections, to envision a bright future in the days to come. The dissemination of hidden messages of Ambedkar's writing would uplift self-esteem of weaker section to lead a life full of selfhood and dignity. We are sure that present deliberation is a grand success. Such lectures would work as a building block to promote liberty, equality, and fraternity, enabling Dalits and Adivasis to break the manacle of segregation and change of discrimination in the days to come. Sir, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I am a little surprised that you have asked me question on reservation, 2-3 questions, but not on the approach, method, and goal of Dr. Ambedkar. So reservation is the key thing. Thank you very much. Okay, I will close down now. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very nice, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Nice.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sanjay,
Thank you, sir.
can you send me the recording, please? Can you send me the recording?
Definitely.
I am not able to close it. Anyway, let us see.
Sir, links are there. It will be sent to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
बहुत अच्छा कार्यक्रम है.